discuss negotiations with CSCA, meet and received information, and planning and preparation, meet and confer, confidential classified, and we gave direction. We also received information on planning and preparation, meet and confer with adult school, also gave direction. We discussed the assistant and superintendent contract, which also gave direction, and superintendent contract, which gave direction to myself. Okay, that was closed session, and we're going to now go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please mute yourself, and I will lead the pledge. We'll wait for the flag. Okay, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the agenda, written communication. Board, I have that we received several emails from adult school childcare concerns about reopening and safety. And we also received concerns about contracts that are in the consent agenda as well. Anything else, board, that you've received? Christy?
I think there was concern, and I don't know if that's what you're referring to as far as guest speakers and the amount of money coming out of the high school. Is that what you're speaking to?
That's the contracts.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. All right. Moving on. Board member comments. I'm going to defer to the agenda tonight because we have a packed agenda. Christy?
I'm with you. Let's get right into it.
Okay, John Paff.
Well, I really want to commend staff and admin and people at the DO. You know, we've received, I want to say, 4 updates to a document, and each one of them is required because of updates from either the county or the federal level, I'm sorry, the state level. And that we are on top of it and really moving forward towards a fall opening is very impressive, and I appreciate all the hard work that's being put into it right now.
Thank you, John. Brian?
I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody on the tech team, Jonathan and everybody else who just have been continually making these meetings happen, and I think they're more and more, they're flowing more easily, and I really appreciate how I mean, we're looking here right now. We got, you know, it's summer. Believe it or not, it's summer, and we have 72 people tuned in, 73, nice prime number, and it's nice to see that too. So anyway, that's all I got.
Thank you, Brian. John Walton?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent report?
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, I'll defer to the agenda this evening as well, but appreciate the kind comments from the trustees.
Okay, thank you. PGUSD staff comments, and as the last time, we're going to use raise hand function instead of chat. So if you would like to, if you're a staff member, you'd like to just talk about any non-agenda items, just click the participants down on the lower middle of your screen, and you'll be able to raise your hand there. So we'll allow a few minutes for that, a few seconds. Ani, I see you. Did you raise your hand?
I did.
You did. So I'm not seeing them. So let me, I didn't see your hand. I see you on the screen and I see, bear with me, everyone.
I didn't raise my hand properly.
Can you maybe try again to raise your hand? Just to, I want to make sure it's working.
My chat's disabled, yeah.
Well, the chat should be disabled, but if you click on participants,
Mm-hmm.
There's
you
a hand
should
raised.
get a raised hand.
Oh, there, I see it. Yeah,
There it is, John Paff. Thank you, John.
Okay, that was just a
Okay.
practice. Thank you, though.
All right, I just want to make sure it's working. Okay, Ani, we won't torture you to make sure you get your hand raised.
No,
Go
but
ahead.
I looked for hand raising and I couldn't find it. I just want to say that I am so proud of our administrative team and our teachers working together. Like you say, this summer, it's like summer. What, summer? It's like we're all together around making sure that we provide what we need for our kids. And that's what we're all about. And I'm just so proud of our teachers and our administrative team. And I mean, we've been going at it like 24/7. And so I'm just so pleased. And I just want to say that publicly. There you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you, Ani, and thank you too. You're part of all
Hey.
that.
Happy to be with a great team,
Yes, of course.
of teachers and admin, everybody together. Teachers, admin, and classified staff, because you know what, they're right there
Yeah.
with us.
Definitely.
Everybody's together. We're in this together, and I'm just so pleased. That's it.
Okay.
That's my rah-rah moment.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no others, you can chat with me directly if you're trying to raise your hand and I'm not seeing it. So we're going to keep moving on. This is individuals desiring to address the board. I'm going to read my little spiel here. Any items of interest to the public will be heard. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes. Total time for each item is 20 minutes. Public comment will also be allowed for each agenda item to board action. This is a business meeting of the board conducted in public, and please note the Brown Act limits our ability to respond to public comment. The board may choose to direct items to administration for future agenda. So any individuals desiring to address the board, use your participants button in the middle lower part of your screen to raise your hand. We'll allow a few seconds for that. Okay, seeing none, I will keep moving on. We're now on action discussion A. We have Measure A Technology Bond Citizens Oversight Committee report. I understand the Superintendent Song Chinbin Dib, are you with us?
Yes,
Thank you. Was this going to be a presentation or?
it's a report. Yes, a presentation by the COC chair. And I see that Mr. Alex Lockhart you will have to unmute and then probably show the screen. Just want very quickly to introduce the citizens meeting by law, because Proposition 39, bond Measure A that was passed under that proposition, so required by Ed Code 15278. We need to have at least once a year to have COC, a committee to review expenditures. I mean, expenditures already happened, to make sure they are expended per the bond language and in compliance with, the purpose of the bond. So we convened the committee, and the committee elected a chair, and the chair is here to talk about the report, talk about expenditures. And this is for prior year. It's always a year behind, because we have to wait until we close the books. The independent auditors have already audited our books and presented, and then the committee will come forth to look at whether they're in agreement with our independent auditors or not. And with that, I think I'll just leave it to Mr. Lorca.
I unmuted him, so he should be there.
Sorry.
All right. Hi, good evening. Thank you all for having me. Good evening, trustees. Good evening, Mr. Rogerman. Yeah, so I think Song hit the high notes here, which is, our task was to review the audit and to ensure that the audit was done properly, and the audit looked at, you know, the proceeds from the two measures passed by the voters, and that those expenditures were for technology and building infrastructure. I'm happy to report that the committee unanimously moved to approve this and present to you for approval. The audit you'll see has found that the districts properly accounted for all the expenditures, and that the expenditures were made for the authorized bond project. So with that, I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions. I don't know if there's anything really beyond that, but we're pleased to present this to the board and recommend its approval.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I'll go to the rest of the board and I'll start off. Again, thank you for being here, and the rest of the committee also for the time spent volunteering for this. We really appreciate it. And also the site committees that meet all the time regarding these items to make sure that decisions are made appropriate and timely and all that. So thank you to all for that. I'll go ahead and move to Christy if you have any questions.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what you just said, that it's so nice when family community members are involved with these different things, so that it makes the schools stronger. We get input, we get support, and I agree. Thank you so much for your time as this rolls out.
Thank you, Christy. John Pav?
I have no comments other than for anyone watching me, I apologize for dropping my iPad.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the efforts you guys put in to keep us on the straight and narrow.
Thanks, John. Brian?
Just to thank you for being there. I know it can sometimes maybe be some dry work, but we need your eyes and your insight on all of that, and it's necessary and appreciated.
Thank you, Brian. John Walton, any comments?
No, just thank you. No additional comments.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, we'll go to public comment as we normally do on each item. And so if anybody has questions or comments regarding the Measure A Technology Bond Citizens Oversight Committee report, go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. We'll allow a few seconds for that. And hopefully I'm not missing anybody. Okay, seeing none at the moment, we'll go ahead and bring it back. And again, thank you so much for this report tonight. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this item.
Seconded.
Okay, and motion by Debbie Crandall, seconded by Christy Dawson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Passes 5-0. And please pass on the comments to the rest of the committee for us as well. Okay, moving on to consent. Now, consent, let me do my little spiel here again. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine or may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. There are no discussions on these items unless the member of a board has specific questions or request an item to be removed. Approved items are considered in full and adopted as recommended. So I will start off this consent agenda by those on with us that maybe have not seen the whole packet. There's quite a few contracts this time. The board does review all contracts, and there's enormous amount this time because of planning for next school year. At the same time, planning for what, we don't know, but planning as if this is going to happen normal, which we know it's not right away. So some of these contracts will, may not be used. I don't know. Also, the board has asked several questions and got answers already. And I will go to the board if there's any future, or sorry, additional questions on the consent agenda. Christy.
I just wanted to note that item L was going to be moved to the action item
Oh.
F. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Christy.
That is correct.
Yes, we have, we did this in the beginning of the open session, but for those who weren't there, Christy is talking about one of the contracts we pulled because it actually is not a routine. It's a discussion that we have to have. So we did pull that, and which is item L in the consent. Thank you, Christy.
Sure.
John Path?
My questions were answered. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
I just had one, and I didn't want to pull this. I think it's a quick question relating to consent item C. If we could just expound on that a moment. I didn't quite understand what was happening there, and I bet Ralph could quickly say what the deal is with that, with Andrew Bradley. And
Yes.
moving him to tenure track, is that
Yeah.
correct?
So that, yes, that position as a digital learning teacher was formerly prior to, well, right now until it's approved, was a teacher on special assignment. So its position was temporary and it was renewed year to year. After watching how that position has progressed, especially current over the last several months during this COVID, it became very clear that the position was a necessity to support our elementary schools and some of the middle school teachers in working through distance learning and certainly how it will proceed in the future. And so that position is by this action being moved to a tenure track, a probationary position, as a regular position now. So it no longer will be TOSA, it will no longer be temporary.
Great. All right. Thank you for that explanation. And I think you're spot on right too. He's a tremendous asset and has been a rock star over the last, 3-4 months as we've been dealing with this. So I appreciate the additional explanation.
Thank you, Brian. John Walton, any questions on consent?
No questions. I just wanted to I saw the 3 contracts on consent for Mountain Mike's and the Bagel Kitchen and Michael's Taqueria to help feed the kids during the summer. And I didn't want to pull them, but I wanted to thank those local businesses for helping feed the kids during the summer.
Yes, thank you. Okay, with that, I will bring this to public comment on the consent agenda. Go ahead and raise your hand if you got a question. Carolyn Swanson has a question when you're ready.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Happy summer. I have a question about consent item K, the contract for the school resource officer. I've just been very aware of all things going on in our country right now, and I just thought that I realized there's a lot of questions that I don't have answered about having a school resource officer on our campus. And so I was looking to maybe read the memorandum of understanding that our district has with our SRO. And I have some questions. I don't know if they're here tonight, but there's some things that I think I assume that I know about having a school resource officer that I don't think that I do know. Like, for instance, I think a lot of parents feel that having an officer there means that he or she is there all day, every day, for every hour that our kids are there. Kind of like in this mindset, we just kind of assume that he's there keeping them safe and patrolling. And I'd love to know more about what his days are done doing, and also what we anticipate him doing in this distance learning program that we're going to be having. And I also have some questions about the suspension rates for kids of color versus kids not of color, but I think that might be for another time. So I did want to comment that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. The suspension rates will, we did get a report on that, was last time, I think, or the time before. And we could look into that, see if we have that additional information. Dr. Porras, on the rest of it, is that public knowledge, the agreement with the SRO?
Yes, yeah, it's a public document. If the board would like to pull the item, certainly we can discuss it. I can answer some of the questions I imagine, but totally up to the board.
Well, for me, the SRO is going to be a little different this year, obviously, but and forgive me if I misspeak this, Dr. Porras, but the SRO also goes to homes of the students if needed. So that job would still be needed for all of the sites, not just one or the other. So I know that he or she is not at one site all day, every day. As far as the rest of the information, Carolyn, if we have that email to you, is that something that you would be okay with? You could read through it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I would love to read through it. And I did, thank you for bringing that up. I did see the suspension rate presentation that Mrs. Martinez did. But I don't remember if it broke down specifically the suspension rates for our different ethnicities on campus, or if it was just a blanket number.
Yeah, no, it did not. But I was just mentioning that I'm sure we would be able to get to that information. So we'll take that as a follow-up
Debbie?
as well. Yes, John?
Dr. Porras, am I correct? Carolyn, Ms. Swanson asked for a memorandum of understanding, but this agreement replaces the MOU, is that correct?
This is his contract. So this is reasserting the MOU and agreement with the city regarding our services with the contract. It's an annual contract renewal. So the MOU still is in place. It's just renewed with this contract.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have another, thank you, Carolyn. I have another public comment from Robin Pelk.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So my questions were actually just along the same lines as Carolyn's, and so thanks, Carolyn, for bringing those up. I did want to ask some questions about the SRO. I think I still have some questions about how this works for distance learning. I guess I don't fully understand what that means, that the SRO is going to students' homes, how or why that is done. And, obviously, given that there's a budget crunch, extra expenses, I think that you're anticipating for adapting to COVID-19, and this is a fairly big budget item. It's just something that I thought is something that should be considered. I also had looked at the discipline rates and the out-of-school suspension rates, among other things, and I don't know if it's the most recent or accurate data, but the data that I found on Great Schools was indicating that there is a race-based discipline gap, with Black students being punished with out-of-school suspensions at much higher rates than the other students in this district. And that's, I recognize that's a different issue, but also I think it's of concern because there, at least nationwide, there are some studies that show that these sorts of racial-based disparities in discipline are worse when there is an SRO on campus. So I would really like to get more information on how the SRO operates and what exactly they're doing, both when schools are operating on campus and what they would be doing in distance learning. Finally, I know that PGUSD has made some changes and that they recently decided not to fund the SRO, the district's contribution, and some of the cities, I think Marina also decided not to fund that. Seaside, I think, is proposing not to in their upcoming budget. So I know that they said they found that the cost of one SRO could pay for 3 full-time counselors. So I think that it would be worth considering whether money could be invested in these sorts of preventative services instead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Dr. Porras, do you think it would be okay that we have Ms. Pelk and Ms. Swanson email to request that MOU? With
Yeah,
the SRO?
certainly. I mean, again, I think I can, if the board would like, I can certainly speak no more than 5 minutes and give a summary of what his duties are currently and what the explanation from, I spoke with the chief on this issue a couple of days ago, just to verify and to try to also clarify to dislink the suspension rates from the SRO. That's really not his responsibility. But in any event, if the board would like, we can pull that, but we would be required to pull it so I can answer those questions.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other public comment at the moment. Bringing it back to the board. Christy, do you have any additional items on consent that you want to discuss? John Path?
No, I don't.
Okay. Brian?
No, I've got nothing. Thank you.
Okay. John Walton?
Well, obviously the community has some questions about the SRO, and I think Ralph was offering to speak to those. So, I would recommend we pull it so Ralph could answer their questions, so we don't have to prolong multiple emails where only a few people get the information. I'd rather just hear Ralph speak to it one time in the meeting later tonight.
Yes, I agree. So that's my input, is I agree. So I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with removing the item L that we discussed earlier, as well as item, I lost it.
Hey,
K for the SRO. That's my motion.
seconded.
Okay, that is a motion by David Crandall, seconded by Christy Dawson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Passes 5-0. We'll go ahead and continue that conversation by pulling consent K and making that action. Well, is it action item, Dr.
Yes.
Porras?
Yes, Madam President, that would be
Okay.
action G.
G. Oh boy. Okay.
L became
What's that, Christy?
L became F, and this becomes G. Okay.
Oh, okay. So we'll talk about it afterwards then.
It's a board's preference.
I was thinking I would just go ahead and keep talking about it. So I don't know.
I think that's a great idea. Let's keep the momentum.
All right. All right. Forgive the confusion. I'm going to make this action item B as in boy. Dr. Forrest? Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
So we moved those. Did we? I think we actually. Forget what I'm saying. No, I think we already did.
We approved the other one. Yeah.
Did we
Okay.
approve that? It's like, yeah, we did. So we pulled those, but we approved. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay. So in the action discussion, we start with B since we previously had A. This item for the SRO is going to now be B, and I'm going to move everything else up one. So Dr. Porras, if you wouldn't mind continuing the information on the SRO.
Absolutely. So we've had a school resource officer in the district almost the entire time that I have been the superintendent here. Actually have experience with SROs my entire professional career. This model that the Pacific Grove Police Department is following is much less of a law enforcement officer on campus and more of a community policing officer. His role is predominantly to help make sure to create obviously a safe environment for all of our students. However, he is there more to help de-escalate issues, to inform students and help teach them about their behaviors and how consequences might come, to work with parents in regards to discipline issues as they need, certainly to help intervene if there are behavior matters, like if a fight was to occur on campus, there was drugs on campus or something that was an egregious violation of the law, he would obviously stand up as a sworn law enforcement officer. Otherwise, he takes a step back and allows the administration to run the school, and he's directed by administration for the most part. He is vital in the drug education program in the district. As you recall, he is a nationally now renowned officer in regards to the DARE instructional program, which will be going now K-8. He will continue that drug education program distance learning wise, so he will still continue to fulfill that role. He will continue some of his mentoring roles as well with families in our school district. He has done a number of parent trainings over the last couple of years, both for drug and alcohol as well as other training. He will continue to offer those trainings throughout the school year, again, virtually for families, but we'll still be working on those projects with us. He is, his presence is predominantly at the high school where he has an office, and he's able to do whatever he can do there. Otherwise, he is present at the other schools as needed. He does do some patrolling just in general to visit the other schools, but mostly goes when he is called. Again, in the elementaries, it's been mostly for the DARE program, but that'll be expanding. I think another piece to bear in mind, he does do a number of site visits to family, and I think this is what Madam President was speaking about. He does do visits to families in their homes in regards to some discipline issues that come up. His presence there is not as a police officer to enforce a school-issued discipline. He's there more as a sort of a counselor and a mentor role. So I think that's really important to bear out. The other districts that have had problems, or other districts that have had concerns with school resource officers, typically have been larger, more urban-esque districts where there have been confrontations with policing style in relation to the students. There are also places where a lot more crime happens on the campuses that requires the police officers to intervene as actual police officers versus community liaisons. And so many of those places are where they were experiencing problems. So in speaking with the police chief yesterday and Commander Lakin, both of them are committed to maintaining the SRO full-time at the schools and maintaining most of the duties that he already does. And again, it'll be virtual. I do want to remind the board that we will have students, if our plans are approved, we will have students on all of our campuses pretty much the entire week except for Mondays. And even then may have some students that are there for intervention. So he will have a role to play physically on our campuses as well. He will also be able to help intervene if there are any issues regarding COVID and visitors on campus that need assistance. So I think I want to clarify that his role and the percentage that you might see in regards to suspension rates are really disconnected. The law enforcement, the school resource officer does not suspend students. His role is to either counsel, advise, or arrest. He will not do most of that without direction from the administration unless it's something that's directly related to law enforcement. So when you see suspension rates, those are assisted by our SRO. However, they are directed by the principal and the assistant principal at the school site who have the authority to suspend or discipline students. So those rates have really nothing to do directly with the SRO other than helping to make sure campus. So we did talk that if in the coming months things change and we have to go to a sort of a more distance learning format as a result of COVID, and his role becomes dramatically diminished, we will certainly have an opportunity to revisit the contract and contracted days with the police department, and they are very willing to rediscuss the role and the percentage of cost in these events. But for right now, we believe that his role will still will still be necessary, and we'll maintain it. So, I don't know if that answers all the questions, but that's a general summary.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any further. This is now an action item, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it to public comment. If there's any questions, raise your hand, please. Okay, we have a public comment from Elliot. Go ahead.
Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yes.
I apologize, but internet is not very good. But I just wanted to follow up on that. That was really good context for the SRO, but I would be curious if there has actually been data for how often the SRO has actually made interventions at the school, particularly with this reduction to at least partial distance learning. It seems like investment in counseling needs to be kind of foremost. And if that's something the SRO can do, that's great. But I do think that that sort of prioritization needs to be considered in these strange and unusual times.
Thank you. Dr. Porras, any further?
Sure. Our SRO is really just fantastic. He's a very good individual. He's fit for this kind of role. He doesn't do counseling as a counselor would do. However, he does mentor and counsel students in regards to their choices. He's trained to do that as part of the SRO training. I don't have specific data, and I'm not really sure exactly what interventions mean, but he certainly has played a vital role in the school. I think that our director of safety could speak to it, Director Martinez, or one of the principals at the sites could speak further if you'd like some more information in regards to his intervention with students on the campus, but I'll leave that up to you.
Well, Principal Keller has got his hand raised, so I'll go ahead and ask him to speak next.
Okay.
Thank you, President Crandall. I just want to share with the public my relationship with our SROs over the years. I have worked with 3 in the time I've been an administrator. I've worked with a total of 5 as an employee, and they've all been outstanding. As Matt Bell, it's common to say, it's not natural. And our relationship is very positive. It's not what is being displayed and discussed in the national discussion of what's going on right now with race. Our SROs have been outstanding. One thing as a parent, I'll just say, you want the SROs that we have. All of them have been the kind of people to help steer our youth towards the diversion program in Carmel, instead of going behind bars or going to, having more punishment. As Dr. Porras mentioned, he's been nationally recognized. I just anecdotally know that he truly does counsel because he cares about our kids and our community. He has a great relationship with all the administrators at each site, and his connection with kids is outstanding. What I really love about all the SROs over the years, we do have kids that tend to do things they shouldn't, and we have great relationships with the county prevent program, which is a multi-agency program for drugs and alcohol in the area. And you want someone with that kind of background to be able to discuss if a different agency comes to our school and says they want to talk to our students, which they have the right to do. You want to have an SRO who could speak their language and help taper down some of the situations we've dealt with in the past. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Principal Martinez? I think I muted you on accident.
I tried raising my hand, but apparently I
No, you did. You did.
Oh, okay.
I did something to mute you on accident. Go ahead.
I just wanted to reiterate, Sean Keller, what a great statement that you made. I back that 100%. Our SRO really does build relationships. It's all about building relationships with students, and I know that a lot of the comments tonight were making relationships and positive relationships with administration, but truly, Officer Hanks builds positive relationships with every student when you don't know it. It's in the quad, it's around the corner. It is totally community policing. It's during his off hours. He teaches, and he does recommend students for outside services. So those are some of the types of interventions. He follows up on students if they get into some trouble with drug use or alcohol use. He follows up with them and makes sure that they're in a program. And he works with the family, a true family community police officer he is. And he is available to assist school administration in the decisions for suspension. He does not suspend. He supports the school policy, but doesn't enforce the discipline. The school administrator enforces the discipline policy. That's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, John Paff, you have your hand raised, but I am going to bring it back to the board. Is that
Okay.
just a mistake? I'll just lower your
No,
hand.
you went to public comment before asking for the board. So.
Oh, no, because I thought we had just talked about it, so I apologize. I'm going to come back to the board now. I just want to add that public comment tonight regarding the counselor is very valid, and I appreciate you mentioning that. I don't think this contract will Though it is a good amount from the general fund, it is more than worth it. And a lot of things are confidential that we can't talk about, but this position is definitely needed in our district. And that's my comment. So Christy, any further comment on this item?
Yeah, I think the thing I would like to say, especially since school with COVID-19 happening, obviously an SRO when nobody's there it's not very helpful. What I liked what Ralph mentioned was if indeed things change as we move into the future, as we approach summer vacation and then we start the next school year, if distance learning gets back to taking front and center and he's not around, I appreciate that the department would be amenable to talking about the salary, because to be paying a full salary to somebody who can't be there, he's obviously, I doubt he's sitting at home. He's probably, I would hope, working for the department. So that's what I would care about as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. John Paff?
Well, I want to reiterate, really just back Sean, on a very personal level, the SRO, in the instance in which I knew, how to say this, that an officer would be involved, people have called the SRO, they've called their parents, and then they call the SRO. And that says a lot, so.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Brian, anything else?
Just a quick observation in my experience over my years here in the district, and I can think of the two SROs, Justin, and I think it was Billy who was prior. Both of those gentlemen that we've had are just tremendous assets to the community at large too. I think we've been fortunate to have them. They've been good choices. They stepped up. They really have just been exemplary. And that's it. That's just my observation of what we've had. They've been assets to the community at large, and great to have on all the campuses too, as they make their way through that. So that's all.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. John Walton, anything else?
Just a point of clarification, I think, for the public, because I know contracts are confusing, but our SRO doesn't work for us as a school district as an employee. It's a contract with Pacifico Police Department. So I've heard some comments about that we pay his salary and things like that. We don't. This is a contract with PG Police Department for SRO services, and it's great that we've had good SROs, and I think we have a good SRO now. My two sons have been through, from kindergarten up through high school, and the programs that the police department does through the SROs with our schools is fantastic. And I very appreciate the service they provide to us. And so, I would just say I'm very supportive of it. I know there's more public comments, but,
No, we won't. We went to public comment already. So would you like to make a motion?
No, I'd like to ask Principal Roach to speak. I think he might have been missed in the comment section, so maybe
I see his hand now.
Yeah, his hand toggled back and forth, so I think he went.
Okay, Sean, go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I have to tell you, in thinking back when SRO Hanks hosted several parent nights in regards to vaping education, social media, all these kind of things, the parents really connected really well with him. He was very much of a very gentle resource who kind of really laid it out for parents, and they walked away from that saying that was one of the best meetings that they absolutely had, because he sees it at that level. Number two, last year, I think he co-authored the middle school DARE program nationwide and piloted it last year. And I'll tell you something, middle school in some cases is the new high school as far as what these kids are exposed to and what they see. I think that's an absolutely essential program, and he carried it off with grace, and he connected with kids. And I've been doing this for going on 9 years now, and he is absolutely the best I've worked with. The relationship between the Pacific Grove Police Department and the PGUSD is a very positive relationship, and there's a lot of positive things that go on behind the scenes that I really feel I need to let you guys know about. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, since we did bring it back to public comment, I have one more, and then we're going to bring it back to the board. Carolyn, go ahead.
Thank you so much for explaining his roles during the day and for clarifying some of the questions I had. I really appreciate that. I think that because of so many things that have been going on in our country, if there's a time, maybe next school year, once things settle down, to just kind of have some sort of more communication, especially if it's a virtual meeting. I think more of us can make it, as you guys have been able to see with the virtual school board meetings. I think it'd be wonderful to have more communication with our school resource officer and just kind of put to bed any angst that parents might have, clarify questions, just make sure we're all on the same page, because it sounds, I mean, I worked with SRO Hanks for the Be Smart program, and he was very helpful. I'm not a student at his primary site at the high school, so I can't speak to how students feel about him. But I think overall, some communication would be a really smart idea during this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bring it back to the board. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to.
I have one more question. I know
okay.
Mr. Walton mentioned that of course he's hired by the police, but we pay the salary. Is that correct?
Half, 50%.
We'll pay $75,643.
That's 50%
of his pay.
Yes.
Okay.
We reimburse
we pay money for his services.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Christy. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the agreement of services with the City of Pacific Grove for school resource officer.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Debbie Crandall, second by John Paff. Roll call, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. That passes 5-0. Okay, now we're going to backtrack a little bit to a public hearing, and I'm going to open this public hearing at 7:18 p.m. This is a public hearing of tentative agreement with California School Employees Association, CSEA. Assistant Superintendent Chen Ben-Dib, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this? We've discussed this previously.
No, just other than to say that we want to thank the county office also for expedited AB 1200 review of the documents.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's within actually within 48 hours, including weekends.
Oh,
wow.
Okay, great.
Sunday, on a Sunday evening. So, so really it helps us to get this on time for the board packet. And also we got news of the ratification by the bargaining group. So it was all positive today result. So it was good.
Thank you.
Madam
Okay,
President.
then I'm going to, yes, Dr. Porras.
Just wanted to make a note. I think Song undersells herself a little bit. I want to appreciate her work with the county office. AB 1200s don't happen this quickly. It's just, as Principal Bell would say, it's not normal. You really had a good connection with her colleagues at MCOE, and it's due to her extreme efforts that got this passed so quickly, and we were able to make this item happen tonight. So I want to acknowledge her hard work and her diligence on getting this done on behalf of our employees. So it was very important.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Song, for that. Christy, I'm going to the board now for questions. Christy?
I don't have questions. Thank you.
Okay, John Paff.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Brian?
I'm not a one.
Okay. John Walton?
No question.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and we do have public comment on hearing, so I'll leave public comment open for a few seconds here. You raise your hand if you have comment, question. Okay, seeing none right away, bring it back to the board, and I'm going to close this hearing at 7:21 p.m. Next item is action discussion B. It's approval of the tentative agreement with California School Employees Association, which we just talked about. So I'll bring it back to the board. I'm not going to go through each one of you, but if you have any other questions?
Yeah.
Going once, going.
I'm sorry, I thought you moved the letter L, the Monterey Bay Charter. Did you move that to the beginning or the very end?
End.
So sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I moved the SRO to the beginning.
All righty. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and open public comment on this item. Again, it's the same item as we just discussed in the public hearing. We're just approving it now. Okay. We have a we have a public comment from Leslie. Go ahead, Leslie.
Hello, I'm assuming everyone can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm Leslie Ternullo. I am the CSCA president, and I did just want to also extend my thanks on behalf of our membership for the district team working with us. This was definitely under a time crunch, like was mentioned, and I appreciate the district team and especially Assistant Superintendent Chin Bendib to help us get this all done in the nick of time. Much appreciated.
Yes, thank you as well. Okay, seeing no other public comment at the moment, we're going to come back to the board for a motion.
I move that we approve the tentative agreement with California School Employee Association.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Christy Dawson, second by Brian Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That passes 5-0. Okay, moving right along, we are on action item. Now I'm confused. Give me a second.
Action C.
D. We're on action item D. So, Dr. Porras, this says consent and action. I just noticed that.
Oh, should be action.
Approval of Pacific Grove Unified School District Confidential Employees Team Agreement. This is action.
This is action.
So this is action item D, like dog. And this is the tentative agreement that we are making with that group. Any questions from the board, comments? Christy?
I don't know what happened to C here in my.
So C was, moved everything up. So everything now is going to be one letter up.
Okay.
So because I put that SRO in there, so everything moved up.
Other than my general confusion, I have no questions.
Okay, well, join the crowd. I'm confused too, obviously. Okay. John Paff, any questions,
comment.
comments? Thank you. Brian?
I'm good. Thank you, Debbie.
Okay. John Walton?
No questions.
Okay. Public comment is open for this item. Okay. Seeing none, bring it back to the board. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve Pacific Grove Unified School District Confidential Employees Team Agreement.
Seconded.
Okay. Motion by Debbie Crandall, second by Christy Dawson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pass 5-0. Next item is action item E, as in Edward. Christy, you got that? Just kidding.
Get those letters.
Just kidding. Okay, this is approval of Pacific Grove Unified School District Administrative Employees Agreement. This also is, this is to approve it, to go then to the hearing, which will be next. So I'll bring it to the board for any questions. Christy?
None at this time, thank you.
John Paff?
No comments.
Brian?
Nope, I'm good.
John Walton?
Nothing for me.
Thank you. I'm going to open this up for public comment. Okay, we have a comment from our own Mr. Bell. Go ahead, Mr. Bell.
Yeah, just on behalf of the administrative team, one, we just want to say thank you for doing all the work that the board does day in and day out, and for honoring the administrative team and considering this. We really want to say thank you. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Seeing no other public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. I'll just continue on and make a motion to approve the Pacific Grove Unified School District Administrative Employees Agreement.
Seconded.
Okay. Motion by Debbie Crandall, second by Christy Dawson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Path?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That passes 5-0.
Madam President, if I may, for just a moment.
Yes, please.
Perhaps it was appropriate that Matt spoke, but I did want to point out that this is Matt Bell's last board meeting.
What?
I think it was very.
I thought it was last time. That's why I was like, hey.
Yeah, I know. Like gum on a shoe. I told you. He is just. I just want to make a note of that. I thought it was pretty appropriate, and I just as on behalf of the management team as well, and I wanted to separate myself from that, of course, because they're your own meeting confer. But just want to extend also appreciation to the board for that action.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for being here. Oh, sorry. A little excitement going on here. Okay, we're going to move on now to action discussion F, as in Frank. This is board calendar future meetings. Dr. Porras, are there any changes to this calendar?
You know, I can speak more to this on the information item for.
Oh, sorry. Let me.
Thought that was me. Perhaps we could speak to it there as well. But I did want to, based on conversations that I had with the county health department, at this point in time, there's going to be a bit of a delay. They're pretty backlogged on any draft proposals that we bring to them regarding the reopening of schools. It's pretty clear that the July 9 meeting is going to be too soon to have any feedback from county health. So if we were expecting that feedback from them, I would suggest that we change the July 9 meeting to July 16. I think that would probably be the only meeting we would need to have, because I think we'd be able to answer most of those questions. Obviously, we'd leave the 23rd on the calendar in the event, if the board would like, but I think the July is going to be a little too soon. So that being said, I'll leave it up to the board, but that's kind of the information I got a little bit earlier today. The backlog is weeks right now on reviews, so.
Okay. All right, bringing it back to the board, I'm in favor of that. Christy?
Absolutely, July 16th. We want to make sure we've got all the information necessary to make wise decisions.
Yes. John Path, you okay with
Well,
that?
I think you're going to get information back before then, but sure.
Yeah, but to approve
You're
it.
first. Nobody else is as close to done as we are, Ralph. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Brian?
Not an issue. It's okay.
Okay. All right, John Walton?
No, I appreciate it. To Ralph's point, I think, it's a difficult challenge because it is such a moving target. And, even today, the governor passed new guidelines that are going to affect. And I think that's just going to continue for the next few weeks. And so adjustments will have to be made along the way. What I'd like to make a motion for related to our calendar for clarity for the public is, make a motion to cancel the special meeting we had previously approved for July 9th, and add to that motion to add a regular meeting, not a special meeting, but a regular meeting for July 16th to review and hopefully finalize the plans, but go ahead and leave the July 23rd on the calendar, which could be canceled at a future date.
Okay, so July 16 is good, and it is motion to make that a regular scheduled meeting. So there are other items that could be discussed as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring it to the public. If there's any public comment on this, you raise your hand, allow a few seconds. Okay, seeing none, bringing it back to the board. Are there any additional comments by the board?
I like moving it a bit also that I just think it's very imperative right now that there's some time for teachers, admin, classified, everybody to kind of rest a bit. And having the 2 meetings far apart, I think it was a lot. I like the idea of having this meeting and then people getting a bit of a break. I just think as we gear up, there's going to be a lot as we go towards the fall. So I just want to make sure we keep taking care of our people and not working them to death.
Yeah. Okay.
Spoken truly as someone not working 40 hours a week. That's all I'm saying.
Look how rested I am. I want everyone to get a nap. Like I get a nap. I only worked 400 years, but you're right. It's true.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and reiterate John Walton's motion that he made a motion to move the July meeting to July 16 and it to be a regular scheduled meeting, and I will second that. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Path?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, John. That passes 5-0. So more to come for the public that's online. So more to come for that meeting on the 16th. So just we'll be sending emails out and everybody will get notification on the website and all that so you can stay in touch. Okay, we are on action item. Now this is my test. Action item G, which was pulled from consent. And so for those of you following along in the original packet, this is pulled from consent to discuss the Monterey Bay Charter School Lease Revision number 15. So this item is, we've had an agreement with the Monterey Charter School there on David Avenue, that property for a certain amount of square feet for that property. And that income from that lease funds are Fund 40, I believe it is. Fund 40, which is for facilities. And I believe the counts the track, the high school track, I believe. Assistant Superintendent Chimbin did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you have covered all the main points. The only thing different this time is at regular times we wouldn't have this as an action item. We asked the board to put it into action item instead of a consent. It's pretty much listed under information and within the board cover. The 2 points that are specifically requested by the charter school. Number 1 is asking the board to consider if charter is not funded, the COLA of the 2.31%. As we know, the governor of the legislature has completely changed the governor's proposed May revision, as now between the legislature and the governor to come up with a compromise or some of the fashion of the ultimate budget. So if it's not funded, the charter is asking the board consider whatever the rate that has been approved by the, it's going to be approved by the governor. So it's 1. Number 2, if it is approved in some fashion, who knows, between the range of the 0% or 2.31%, the defer apportionments. The governor and the legislature have said pretty much this seems like the point that will be maybe agreed by both parties. If it's deferment of apportionment, the charter school is asking for the board to consider that. When they receive the cash, the funds from the state, they'll pay us whatever that's owed. For example, let's say the June deferral is going into July. if the July, the receipt came in and it comes in until, like I said, July 6th, and they'll pay us really shortly after that. According to the executive director of Monterey Bay Charter School, she said the district had worked with them in the past, help them to deferral. We do know that being charter school, they cannot do bridge financing such as the trans payment like we do, you know, because we being basic school district will issue trans every year because we don't get our receipts until December and April. So we have to pay payroll and pay bills in September and October especially. But they're not able to do that. Also, if they want to go back to in the market, commercial banks and such, they say they shy away from that. Commercial banks, they shy away from loaning to charter schools. So it's really a double whammy. So they're requesting 2 considerations.
Sorry, I was listening but dealing with my pup again. Okay, so number 1, what percentage will we raise the lease to? Number 2, will we allow them to delay the payments? Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if I'm reading the history correct, it's per square feet. They're not asking for more square footage. And it says that the monthly rent was gone from 0.952 to 0.983, but that it doesn't say, oh, it does say, forgive me, 3.26%. So we're proposing anywhere from 0 to 2.31.
That's correct. So if it's 0, they're asking for us not to raise. So that means the same rent as this year, 2019-20. It's about $18,000. It's a total of $225,893.40, meaning flat going into 2021. If the governor is actually not funding this COLA of 2.31%. If the governor is funding, let's say, 2%, they're willing to just go for 2%, wherever this is going to be funded by the governor.
Okay, so I am going to bring it to the board. I'm just doing my comments first. So the contract, to agree with them to the lease and delay payments is fine with me, but I don't see how we can make a contract for a percentage amount or 0, not knowing what that raises, what the COLA is going to be. So I would propose that we would just agree with, do a contract with them to state that, and we would have to look at the contract once they get that information. I don't know if that can work, but that's what I would prefer to do. Christy?
I would cut them some slack because I think times are hard. I think this is an incredible flow of revenue. So I don't think, I mean, they're stating that when that COLA comes in, it would come to us. So I would just.
But how much is the question, right? They're asking for 0 to 2.3 increase. So if we'd have to agree on an increase tonight, but we don't know if they're going to get the COLA or not, and if they do, how much. So they may come back and say they don't have it, but we already approved for them to have an increase of 2%. I wouldn't feel right about that. I'd rather wait to see.
That's not what this says, Debbie.
Okay.
What this is asking for is, and we could do it the way I think, this is where I think you wanted to go, is we could say we agree to a contract that accepts the current lease plus the COLA as defined by the governor.
That's what I understood.
If it's 0, then it's 0. If it's 2, the governor has said right now 0, but he's also said 2.31 is a max. That's where the numbers came from. So if we write it in as a COLA, then we've written in a percentage. We don't know what that is, but they agreed that they accept whatever the governor says is the COLA.
Yes, that was my understanding as well. And I like.
Okay. Then I misunderstood. Okay, Brian?
And that is what I was thinking, and well, that was what I was wondering, and I think the question has been answered. So if we can do it that way, and we don't have to bring it back, then just to tie whatever that number is to whatever the COLA number ultimately is, then great, let's do that. Absolutely.
And you're okay with delaying the payments as well?
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, John Walton?
I guess I have a question before I can say how comfortable I feel with it. First, I guess I would just say, I'm not opposed at all at renting facilities out to charter schools or anyone else to bring revenue into the district, and it's better to do that than to leave them empty and gain no value from them. On the other hand, revenue's only good if it exceeds expenses. And my concern with that facility is we've heard from reports in the past that facility needs a lot of maintenance and repair. I guess I would ask the administration, perhaps Director Kelly or Long, with what we're talking about doing as this tentative agreement, will that sufficiently cover the forecasted expenses for that facility for the next year? Or are we going to come out in the negative? Because as much as I want to do them no harm, neither do I want to subsidize and lose money on this deal.
Song, do you know what the current balance of the Fund 40 is?
It's well, the Fund 40, the expenses is coming out of our routine maintenance, and I don't know Director Kelly is in this. Oh yes, here. Maybe Director Kelly can provide some additional comments. Is a positive cash flow. So the income does exceed expenses for a number of reasons. One is that, yes, the facility is old, but some of the things are still very functional. We fix, we repair wherever there's, urgent, pressing. Other than that, we just, normally we just do some patch-up, routine, minimal patch-up work during the year. We're not doing anything major. So there's already a net of income over the expenses for this rental. But the other part I want to say, just clarify in terms of the direction is review and provide direction, by the board. If the board feels comfortable when we know, because hopefully we'll know in a couple of weeks what the final result is going to budget, going to be signed into law by the governor. We can bring it back because there's going to be a July regular meeting if the board feels comfortable that way, so feel better, and just to solidify, here's the percentage. But having said that, there are going to be years where the governor would delay the real budget. It's possible. We heard in a rumor that there could be some delays in the signing into law by the governor. So if that happens, we'll just play by ear and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, thank you, Song, and Director Kelly, I see you now too. I mean, what my concern, I guess, was, and it's good to hear that it's a positive cash flow now. I guess I was alluding to, I know here in the county where I work, we're having to retrofit facilities and spend a lot of money to make the facilities safe for people to return to work and things like that. And I know in the upcoming presentation, we're going to be talking about things we have to do to our school facilities to make people feel safe to come back. And I was concerned maybe there was some unknown costs that we would be required to spend on these facilities to make them ready to be leasable in a sense in this new world. But I like your idea, Song. I would be supportive of trying to come up, based on what Director Kelly says, trying to come up with an agreement and bringing it back at the regular meeting in July now. But that's, I don't know, I guess it's contingent on what Director Kelly has to say.
Go ahead, Matt Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Song, on the maintenance side of it and what we're spending in materials for just, small maintenance project. We're definitely ahead of the game. It's, your capital projects that are going to put us behind the game, like your roofing systems and painting and gutters and, stuff like that, playgrounds, when you start adding all those up. And I think we've looked at the costs of all those in previous board meetings. That that definitely puts us behind. And then there's also the time spent as far as maintenance and grounds goes on that facility. While there would be still time we'd spend there if it was vacant, we do the time that's spent there. We don't spend it in other places throughout the district. So it spreads us thinner than if it wasn't there.
Director Kelly, I mean, you allude to those capital projects. Are there any of those that are upcoming and urgent for this coming year when we would theoretically hold the rent flat in a sense?
I think on the from what I recall on the spreadsheet that we had the roofing and I believe the sewer system as the two major repairs that have to be done within the next year or two. So that even I can't remember how much the roofing was, but I think it was a couple $100,000 for all the roofs, and then the sewer has to be replaced, and of course that same sewer system is also on the community high building as well. So there's a little portion of theirs.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Don Paff, you have your hand raised again.
Well, I do, yeah. John, I guess what I'm hearing from you is if it's not covering its own cost, but it certainly covers its own cost. What it doesn't cover is the cost of replacement, which will eventually catch up to every building we own. So the thing is, it's not just the charter school for me, it's everything else we have in there. And there are 3 different institutions in there right now, actually 4. I don't know, Ralph, how many are in there?
4.
Do you recollect?
4.
4, yeah, 4. So we'll actually eventually out of that capital fund have to fix the roof and have to fix the sewer system. But I have no expectation that we're actually paying for every part of that building from just the charter school. I'm not quite sure. I guess I'd say it's a capital building in the same manner as any. And if we expect 20 more years of rent, that gets amortized if we put $300,000 in it over 20 years.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, board. I'm going to go ahead and bring it to public comment if there are any to raise your hand. You see none? Bring it back to the board. I just have to say for the record, and it appears I understand it differently, but I do not understand it to say it's going to match the COLA amount. But if that's what the board understands, I'll hear a motion.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say, Trustee Walton, I think, has it right. If we've made the other meeting by making the other meeting a regular meeting, there's no urgency on this issue, and this information should be available by June 30.
So you want to propose to bring this back on July 16th?
I think it is very straightforward to bring it back on July 16th.
Is it necessary to delay it though? I mean, the action seems pretty clear what we're going to do here. I think everybody understands it, and to put the other party's mind at ease, we could do that now too, could we not?
Yes.
I guess my concern, Brian, is we don't actually have a contract to approve, and I think
oh, you're right. Yeah.
So to
We're
just
approving.
create a contract and agree to it without our voting on it to approve it, even though we've given general direction, seems unusual.
I get you, and I know you're our
What's a
contract
lease?
guy.
Well, it's a lease, not a contract, which is slightly different, right?
Is it possible to communicate with them what our intention is, that we're waiting for the final information from the governor and that we're amenable to their proposal, and that once we have that contract, we'll move on it very quickly. That way their mind is set at ease that we're in agreement. We just want to wait and see the actual numbers.
Song, do you have any feedback on that?
No, certainly we can convey that. of course, is, you know, if the board approves this with a, like trustee Dalton said, this will put their mind at ease. I think this in itself, yes, we can proceed forward if the board so desire, because this is a format that we've been doing for every year. We just say, here's the revision. The original contract stays the same, all terms and conditions, indemnifications and insurance coverage and so forth stay the same. The only thing that changes, that will change, is only the square footage. And in the past, it's always per funded COLA. Look at the year before and 2 years ago, same thing is funded COLA. That's why we put down here is from 0 to 2.31% COLA increase.
So Song, you're in communication with these people. It sounds like what you're alluding to here is it would, I mean, they're trying to move forward with their school year too. And we spent a lot of time talking about peace of mind and knowing what's going on. Would it be a recommendation that we go ahead and do what we do every year with that caveat that the COLA, that would be your recommendation?
I think that would make it much easier to process working with them. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then I make a motion to approve the Monterey Bay Charter School lease revision number 15 with the items requested.
Seconded.
Okay, I have a motion by Debbie Crandall, second by Christy Dawson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Trustee Walton?
I just want to clarify my vote. I'm going to vote no, but only because, you know, I feel like if there really was a sense of urgency and worry on their part, they would be at this meeting speaking to those things. I appreciate Song speaking on their behalf. I think we've been very clear in this conversation. We have no intent not to renew the lease with them. And I think, you know, as a board member, I'd be more comfortable seeing it come back on the 16th. But with that as a caveat, I'll vote no.
Okay, thank you, John. It does pass 4-1. Thank you.
Madam President, if I may,
Yes.
could you just, for the record, because I got a little jumbled, I just want to make sure that I heard, could you repeat the motion that was passed?
Yeah, so to approve the lease revision number 15 as requested.
Okay.
So A and B items is what they requested to be the revision.
Okay.
Does that
That's perfect.
make
Thank you.
okay? Okay. All right, that is the end of our action discussion. We got through that quick-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. On to information discussion, district update on response to COVID-19. Oh boy. Okay, Dr. Porras, it's all you.
Thank you. So I want to, I'm going to try to make this relatively short, but there's just so much. And I think what I'd like to do this evening, if I may, is to go over sort of the highlights in specific, some of the changes that have happened since the last time we presented this in terms of clarification from the county health department as well as from the other superintendents in the county. This document is now getting on to 100 pages or so, which is fine because it's really intended to be a reference document. And the changes that we've put in since really speak to some of the operational pieces now. So some of the what's going to happen in terms of screening, how are students going to be received at the school, how are we preparing our school sites, a lot of those real specific questions about how are we going to be ready to have our students here I think are answered pretty well in our recommendations. We have since sort of split this into two documents, actually three. There's the reopening document, which is on your screen currently. And I want to confirm, are you able to see the PowerPoint right now on the screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great.
General assumptions.
Yes. So this one is the general one you've already seen. It is what's posted. We will repost the revisions tomorrow morning. We call this one basically the reopening plan because our intent is once the board gives us that direction, that this is the direction we want to go, we will pass this along to the health director, along with the second document, which was created by our facilities director, Matt Kelly, which is titled the COVID operational plan. And that's really the meat and potatoes of how are we going to prepare our facilities? How are they going to look? How are we going to respond to symptoms, COVID cases, in terms of facilities and operations. And then we also have another document, which you'll see a part of this evening from our Human Resources Department. The county is requiring that we set up a staff training, which all staff would be required to see, which basically introduces them again to what our system and our protocol is going to look like. And that training would be happening at the beginning of the year. We have a good setup for that presentation, and we'll show you a bit of it tonight, but that'd be a separate document as well. So some of the changes that you'll see so far. Let me go ahead and walk you through some of these, and then you'll hear from some of our site administrators. We won't go over all 100 pages tonight. So I'm not sure why that suddenly appeared on my screen, but so general assumptions. I want to just reiterate these. This is the what we're operating on and creating our plan about. This is pretty much what it looks like. We confirming a lot of unknowns. Our academic system is the priority, and we have to make sure that we have compliance with all the state laws that are around us. We have operational assumptions. I'm not sure why that came up on my screen, so I apologize if you see that, but it looks like it got put on there somehow. Oh, there it goes. Operational, the operations assumption, again, that we know that we have to have a countywide stage 2 fully implemented. We do know that currently our restrictions are 12-1. We know we have directives from both the county and the state governor that we are to allow for distance learning for those parents that are not ready to have their students come. And we still need to allow also a hybrid model that brings students back to the campuses to help address the issues of serving our community by having students at the sites. Again, the final design would be required to be approved by the health director. We also have a educational programs assumption continued. We know that there are going to be some things that are going to be happening. We're going to have to be adjusting to changes. We know that we're going to have some wellness resources in place and therapeutic interventions involved, which we already are planning for. We know there will be economic impacts that will affect our families, that will affect attendance rates, that will also affect learning outcomes for our students. It's going to be a tricky year for us, and we have to assume that that is the case. But really, more than anything, we are going under the assumption that we're creating an educational program for our students so that learning will continue, that it's accountable, and that we are accountable to the state for having our programs run. This is a new slide for you. We have been working with the county pretty closely, and we are complying with their directives. This is more fleshed out in the COVID operational manual and further in this presentation. But what you see there is more or less what the expectations are in regards to when students arrive. It will look a little different at each of the sites because our sites are set up differently. But essentially, our students will be welcomed at the site. A very quick temperature check with a touchless thermometer. There will be specific entry points that the students will be asked to come onto campus, and we will take those temperatures. I want to iterate that we are not intending to collect biometric data here. We're not recording our students' temperatures. We are checking the temperatures. If they're 100 degrees 0.4 or less, or is lower than 100 degree 0.4, they can come onto campus. That is the temperature that's been told that is acceptable by the health department. If it's higher than that, then we need to have that student move into an isolated room so that we can check for other symptoms, contact the parents and ask them to please pick up their student. This is again a health department directive. We at the district office itself are looking to have appointments only. And guests that come into the office will follow those directives that you see. Obviously, we will try to address any emergencies that might come up through our reception room at the district office. All of our employees are considered essential employees. We do have some volunteers that come to campus that could be considered essential volunteers, that is assisting us in our educational operations. And so the county has permitted us to permit those essential volunteers onto our campus. All other non-essential volunteers will be restricted from our campuses. All of our employees will be required to perform their own health check and self-reporting. If they are experiencing high temperatures or other COVID-like symptoms, they are asked to not report to work, to notify us, and to then notify their physician. The next one, being locked out, give me a moment. The next one is if we are seeing COVID symptoms, but not a confirmed case. Again, these are steps that are required to us by the county health department. Isolation room, contact the parents for pickup. We would need to do a little contact tracing to verify what contacts were made during the day. If it's at the beginning of the school day, obviously that contact would be minimal. Parents would be asked to come in to pick up the student and to contact their health provider. We will check in with the parent regarding at the end of the day. If there's testing to be involved, that actually happens separate from the school district. That happens between the physician and the county health department. County health department would then be in contact with us and follow their protocols in terms of contact, community, communications, all of those pieces. Again, staff members are asked to self-report. If there's a confirmed case, so this is in the event that a case has been confirmed by a physician and the county health department. The county health department really is the one that's going to direct how this all goes. But for the most part, they will be directing isolation of those individuals. I've listed for you there what a close contact is, because those people that are close contacted will need to be notified as well. And the health department will need to make contact with them. And quarantine will go into effect, which is generally 14 days. And the school site itself will need to be most likely closed. Typically, that's 2 to 5 days, although that could be determined differently by the health department. And then if there are any other isolation protocols that will come into place, we will be directed to follow that by the public health. I put the hotline there for you because that's the contact line that anyone would need to follow in regards to COVID cases. And then we would obviously be in close contact with all of our school community and any siblings that are connected. If there's a positive case that's confirmed, again, I just wanted to put what the California Department of Health is directing us to do. That's listed for you there. It's very important, again, to understand that we will be in consultation with the health department, and they will be directing us in terms of school closure, length of closure, risk, so on and so forth. We have been assured by the director, Dr. Moreno, that this will happen very quickly. Again, following guidance in terms of those isolation protocols. You'll find more of this directly specified in the also in the COVID operation document. This is simply a chart that we've seen before coming from the CDC. It's a more of a generalized format, but it's important and is in the document for you. And again, refer to the operation plans for specific protocols. I point this out, and Director Kelly will speak to this in a little bit, but I want to assure everyone in the public, there's a template that's going to be made available that talks about the global preparation of what we're asking our sites to prepare for. However, each site will have its own individual operation plan tailored to their specific site. They are drawing up those plans directly with Director Kelly. Those will be made available to the public. And so every site will see a little bit of a different protocol, including the district office. However, the template is important to note just because it gives you a general overall view. We've walked through these scenarios before, so I want to go ahead and move on to our sites, and they're going to each go over their schedules so far. I think the important part to bear in mind now for these next parts of the presentation, each site has conducted many meetings with staff, with their parents, with constituents, and been a lot of conversations happening. And what we are seeing tonight are our best recommendation for a schedule for our sites to operate in a hybrid model. Again, that is having students on the campus to the greatest extent we can and keeping the sites safe, as well as in line with all of the protocols given to us by the health department, as well as basing it all on a foundation of distance learning. So in the event that we have to close our schools by governor's order, we won't miss a beat. We'll be ready to go. We'll already have that system in place, and it will be operationalized. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and move it over to the two principals for the elementary sites, and they'll be directing me to change the slides as we go.
Thank you very much, Dr. Porras. Members of the public and the Board of Trustees, I am Buck Rogaman, the principal of Forest Grove, and I'll just kind of go through some of the planning that we've been doing. Dr. Porras, if you can you skip ahead to the bell schedule slide, because these previous slides are things that we talked about at the last meeting. And since that last meeting, Principal Keller and myself have been working hard to put together a bell schedule and the 50-50 blended model that we'd like to propose for the elementary schools. We are looking at having Monday serve as a prep day for teachers, as well as a distance learning day for students. And then we will have our cohort A attend school on Tuesday and Wednesday, with cohort B attending school on Thursday and Friday. What you're looking at currently is the bell schedule that we have proposed, and it represents a staggered start for our schools. That's one of the recommendations that the County Department of Health has made, as well as the state, as far as the guidelines go, so we can limit the amount of traffic that's coming onto campus at any one time. We'll have our TK through second grade arrive on campus between 8:30 and 8:45 and report directly to the classroom, where teachers will be waiting for them. And then third through fifth grade is going to report at 8:50 with a 9:05 school start. What you can see at the bottom is that that's going to translate to 3 different times that students will be dismissed. You see an asterisk by the TK kindergarten time. And the reason why that is there is because we think that it would be best for us to start with a half TK kindergarten day and release those students at lunchtime. Then first and second grade are going to get released at the end of the day at 2:45, while third through fifth is going to end their day at 3:05. This way we will be able to stagger the pickup time, and both schools are going to designate multiple drop-off points so that when the students come into campus and have their temperatures taken, that line can move quickly and efficiently, and we can get the school day started as quickly as we can. You look down at the bottom, you see the key, that the T is the teacher in class receiving students, I is the instructional time, R is recess, L is lunch. Currently, we are working through the operational guidelines document that Dr. Porras mentioned to figure out just exactly the protocols that we're going to have in place for recess, lunchtime, and even things as simple as using the restroom. Principal Keller and myself are making very detailed plans in that regard. One example at our site is that we think that we could designate a specific stall in each bathroom for each grade level. With only half of the students in any given grade level coming, we think that we can even maintain some sense of cohort usage within the bathrooms as well. We also have put together a planning schedule to draft the distance learning program, because we know that we're going to have a distance learning program that serves students who have chosen not to come to school, but to do all of their learning from home. And our approach at the elementary school is to build the most solid distance learning plan that we can, implement that across the board for every student. And then when the students are at school, our teachers are going to use that distance learning program as the backbone for the face-to-face instruction. So on the 2 days that the students are there on our campus at the beginning, teachers will be working in support of that distance learning program that's going to be developed during 2 weeks of training over the summer. The weeks that we've designated for that training are July 13th through the 24th, and we're going to activate the members of our planning committees to serve on to attend those planning sessions. What they will be working on is achieving the objectives that were listed earlier in the slideshow, but they'll be doing things like building a blueprint for the distance learning program. They'll also be working on an assessment blueprint for that program, as well as also focusing on the social emotional learning needs of our students, while we also work through even more of the operational details that are associated with the blended learning program. Dr. Porras, if you can go to the next slide. This gives you a little bit of a look at the lunch plan. Students are going to eat lunch for 15 minutes with their teacher. We are going to have a designated indoor spot for students to eat lunch, which would be the classroom. And then teachers, if they would choose to have their students eat outdoors, will have an outdoor location on the campus as well. After they eat for 15 minutes, students would have 30 minutes of recess time. And also those lunch periods are going to be staggered by 20 minutes so that the overlap will be minimized as much as possible. After the students eat lunch, the rooms will be cleaned if they have chosen to eat indoors. And then, of course, the trash will be disposed of properly as well. Every time a student leaves the classroom for an activity, be it recess or lunch, students are going to wash their hands upon leaving the classroom, and then students are also going to wash their hands upon returning to the classroom. This is where the hand washing stations that Director Kelly is going to install on our campus are going to be very important. They are going to give us the capability of having numerous students wash their hands at the same times. And really that hand washing is going to be really one of the main hygiene practices that we're going to rely on to prevent the spread of the COVID virus. Can you go to the next slide, please? Also, we're going to work to support our families in blended learning. We are going to teach students in class for essential workers that need support with instruction for throughout the distance learning program. That means that we will have the opportunity for some of our students that are doing the distance learning portion of the program to report to campus. What we would like to do is work toward having all of our students have the ability to attend campus, whether they're doing the distance learning portion of the instruction or if they're doing the face-to-face. And what I mean by that is that when cohort A is meeting with teachers, cohort B would be on campus as well, receiving the distance learning instruction. We do not think that we can have that up and running by the beginning of the school year, but if you think of this plan as working in phases, what we're looking at doing is building the campus population in phases as we're making sure that the systems that we have planned and put in place are working effectively as they have been designed. Once they are working effectively, then we think at that time we can begin to increase the total student population that would be on campus while we provide the proper adult supervision for students who are doing the distance learning portion of the program and not involved in the face-to-face. You also see on that slide some of the statistics related to family preferences. We don't think families will really be able to make an accurate decision about whether or not they're ready to come to school until the operational guidelines for each site are complete and we can publish those to the parents. That is what we're going to be working on through the month of July. Also parents now hopefully will have a good idea of what the blended learning model is going to look like at the beginning of the school year too. Once again, that's going to be Monday with distance learning. Cohort A meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday. Cohort B meeting on Thursday and Friday. Next slide, please. This is the slide that we showed last time that talks about some of the pros of the 50-50 blended learning. Next slide. And then also some of the benefits for teachers and staff. Next slide. And then some of the benefits for families. What is written in red has been added since last time. And what is nice is that siblings can be organized into the same A or B groups as the elementary school and the middle school. I think that the cohorting aligns a little bit differently at the high school, but K through 8, one of the things that's nice is that there's a proposed model from the middle school that would align with both of the elementary schools so that students K through 8 would be attending school on the same days. Next slide. Some of the concerns and logistics for the on-campus learning portion. These are things that we've talked about last time when we made the pre-presentation. But when we're looking at what we will need to do and figure out is that's the ability to provide sanitation between our Wednesday and Thursday cohorts. In talking with Director Kelly, he felt confident that we would be able to do a sufficient level of disinfection between that Wednesday and Thursday session so that we could move our prep day to Monday in order to align with the middle school. Next slide. And with that, we can turn things over to PG Middle.
Thank you, Principal Rogaman. Trustees, thank you very much for your time. We're going to skip ahead just a little bit to maybe slide, is it 51? So a lot of this is stuff that you've seen in the past. However, there's a little bit of a new wrinkle, and Principal Rogaman kind of alluded to it. So the enriched distance learning pod schedule, and then this is a very rough schedule, but basically this plan is kind of steeped in safety and maintaining as few transitions as possible. So teachers would, again, to kind of backtrack a little bit, Mondays district-wide would be a day for planning, a day for collaboration, a day for intervention, any other specifics that we need to tackle on that day. So Tuesday through Friday are going to be the days of instruction. In the model that I showed last time, Tuesday through Friday, this is going to be an early bird, late bird schedule. So we would welcome our students at roughly 9:15. Those students would go to what we like to call a pod, and it's really kind of an advocate or advisory model where those students would stay in that pod. So our contacts for students under this and the following plan would be 12 students. So that's the entirety of their contacts for this time. So during that AM block of time, students would virtually transition every half hour going through the core subjects, math, ELA, science, and history, right there. Under this model, students from the AM block who wanted to receive lunch would do a kind of a grab and go model. So they would grab their lunch and head on home. We would also host those students too who are going to join us from the PM model, and they would be able to receive lunch in a kind of a similar manner that we do with the public during our shelter in place, very hands-free, safe environment. I've looked at a couple of models over in Europe, and I saw how they socially distanced on field by spray painting big circles on the field, which allows them A, to be safe, and B, to scream as loud as they want and absolutely be okay with it. So I kind of like that model myself. So after our AM students leave and head home, our PM students will come and join our PM pod. Now, one thing that we're really trying to do with this model is we're looking for content leads in every core area. So if a teacher has an AM pod, they would be free during the PM time. And during that time, they could provide either synchronous or asynchronous education directly to those students who are in a pod. And the reverse is also true at that time. This builds in a lot of time for teacher preparation, for teacher collaboration. I like the safety of the model. I think it provides very few transitions and brings students' anxiety levels down when they come back into school. So if you can go to the next slide, please. You know what, we're gonna skip that one for now. Let's go to the next slide, please. Pros, it limits the contacts for teachers to between 12 and 24 contacts. As I said before, student contacts would be no more than 12 other students. I'm going to kind of skip a little bit down on this because you guys have seen this before. It obviously simplifies sanitation, especially if we are able to flip classrooms so that classrooms are only used once a day. Well, then the sanitation can occur on the other side of that. And the goal for teacher of record is to be off to allow them to be able to interact with students one-to-one. Next slide, please. This is the second model, and this is something that kind of came to me a couple of days ago, and I just literally about 2 hours ago got off with my parent task force and ran this by them, and they seemed to like it. So you can go ahead and kind of go through all of those if you would. A lot of the benefits are the exact same. The only change in this model specifically is that it has direct alignment with our elementary school. So effectively, we would be aligned K-8, and I think that does a couple of things. Obviously, it honors our families and staff with students at both level to be able to have a student from the middle school come home if need be and care for and elementary school student. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So this is virtually the same plan, but if you just kind of rotate it on its side, so to speak, so instead of early morning and late morning, or early bird, late bird, you're going to have one cohort of students on Tuesday and Wednesday, and another cohort of students on Thursday and Friday. So it would mirror the elementary school plans. Now, it does another thing too, which I really like. If you look at that 9:30 to 11:30 slot, instead of dividing that into 30-minute increments of instruction, it actually broadens it to an hour. And for myself, I think it's more important to get a little bit deeper, and that hour would provide that opportunity. In this mock-up here, you see that ELA and history are aligned, and they naturally align. If you look at the tail end of the schedule, you see that math and science, which are closely related as well, would align in this model. Again, now during this time, students who are, say, at school on Tuesday and Wednesday would be receiving synchronous and asynchronous education for students or from teachers who do not have a pod at that time. So they would be receiving information and instruction directly during their pod. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. The pros, again, it's an extremely safe plan. It allows us to isolate if necessary. The staff, the students, and the families feel that this is a very safe first step into coming back to school. There's a lot of anxiety as far as coming back. And so part of what we would do is we intend to make a bunch of videos for parents to view sometime in mid-July, where we would show students lining up, where we would show students transitioning between classes and what to do at the bathroom, and how this is all going to look, so that when they hit it the first day, they understand what it looks like, and it lowers their affective filter. These slides are basically the same. The only difference is that this one aligns, like I said before, with the elementary school, and provides families and staff members with students in the district to have a little bit more continuity in what they're experiencing. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And now to the high school.
Okay, hi everyone. Assistant Principal Steinbach from the high school here. So I'll be going over our model. Really the hallmark of our model revolves around safety, equity, visionary flexibility, student-focused collaboration, and supports both school and home connectiveness. Next slide. If you could take a look at our schedule here, we have a red week and a gold week. School would alternate between red and gold weeks. Red week would be full distance learning. Gold week, students would physically be at school. If you see that Monday A day on the red week that's asynchronous, many of our teachers will be giving quizzes, labs, tests, and things like that during the Tuesday through Friday. During the gold week, the BC there, as you see, our two cohorts, A through L and M through Z. Students who can't make those days physically to take these tests or quizzes will be able to take these tests on the first day of the red week, which is that Monday A day, which is an asynchronous day. So that's why that's built in there. Mr. Garcia will go into the details of those synchronous days on the red week. However, many of those days will be with Google Hangouts, Chromecast, and things like this, where students are physically seeing their teacher nearly every day. And obviously they will be in person every other week, Tuesday through Wednesday, depending on which cohort they're in. Cohorts are divided alphabetically, A through L and M through Z. We divided this and we found only anywhere between 15 to 19 classes that are in balance. And we're using that word as students, a classroom where students are over the max amount in the class. And to give you reference there, we have nearly 260 class periods, 140 roughly for A through L cohort and 140 through M through Z cohort. So the fact that we only have about 15 to 19 imbalances is quite nice. Students who have siblings in a different cohort at the high school or another school in the district can be moved to a different cohort. This really speaks to our flexibility of this model. For example, a high school student with a sibling in elementary can be moved to the same days their sibling are physically attending. Red Week is fully online. As I said, students would follow traditional A, B, C schedule. The Bell schedule is exactly the same as intended, whether it be during distance learning synchronously or whether students are physically at school. Gold Week would have 1 day of online instruction on Monday, with the rest of the week meeting in block periods with half the class at a time on campus, our A through L and M through Z cohorts. Classes over the maximum capacity for the classroom would be moved to the library, possibly the small gym, the dance room, the student union, and we do have several large classrooms where teachers have preps, where teachers that may have those 15 to 19 imbalances could move seamlessly into those classrooms. This is a teacher-created model. The model is the preferred choice of the staff based upon our input survey on June 10 and 11. This model was cross-referenced by our data analysis task force, which was led by Larry Hadquist. He outlined the process in an extremely detailed fall planning paper that he created for us, which I'm sure will be issued out to all parents and staff at some point. And this addresses many of the concerns and comments offered up during our fall planning focus groups with parents and other community members. Temperature checks for students upon arriving on campus will be adhered to through multiple locations, and staff will self-report. During break and lunch, students will be encouraged to eat outside if inside physical distancing will be necessary. With athletics, the CIF is prepared to offer alternative calendars if it is determined by July 20 that fall sports may not start as scheduled due to ongoing public health and safety concerns. Next slide. The benefits of the 50-50 hybrid model, red gold model. CTE classes have a block schedule in this model to do hands-on work. Science classes can do labs. PE class can more fully engage students. And as I mentioned before, certainly not every class period, but we will more than likely use this time for tests and quizzes as well, and students who cannot make that can then make up those tests and quizzes on the asynchronous Monday, our A day, red day. To keep up with the expectations of AP curriculum, AP teachers could assign additional asynchronous material at the end of Gold Week because students are only expected to be at school 3 days a week. This really speaks to the flexibility of this model, particularly for our handful of classes that require more extensive and in-depth curriculum. Social and emotional support is easier to integrate and address during a block period. Traditionally, our counselors, including our outreach counselor, find that pulling students during the 101-minute class or block classes as opposed to a 48-minute class is just better for both students and the teacher. This model is nimble and can go to pure distance learning as well as full physical return to school easily. It can also isolate a cohort or easily should a student or staff member become ill. This model matches the quarantine period of time and would allow for quarantine possibly without even missing the Gold Week. Part-time teachers continue to work on the same day and time of the week, not interfering with other obligations they may have. Teachers would see physically or virtually students only one less time per week than a normal year schedule. And CTE teachers could potentially host labs in their room during Red Week because it doesn't interfere with other class meeting times, providing more increased flexibility. Next slide.
All right, the next couple of slides, sorry, Lito Garcia, future principal of Pacific Grove, effective July 1.
If I may, before we continue onwards, could we go back to the previous slide very quickly?
I mean not to interrupt. But there's in my eyes there's a very large issue that I don't think is well addressed, and that is the impact that this. Sorry, one more slide, please.
Sorry, who is speaking at the moment?
Sorry, my name's Thomas. I'm going to be a senior going into high school next year.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can I ask you, Thomas, to hold on with us, and when we're done with the presentation, you'll be first in line to ask questions. Do you mind?
Yes, of course. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
This is my first meeting. I'm not very versed with how the
No,
whole thing goes.
no worries. Just keep your hand raised there, and you'll be first in line. Go ahead, Principal Garcia.
Okay, the next couple of slides, information that we have presented already regarding student expectations and staff expectations. And so I'll just summarize the next 3 slides by stating we are going to continue to challenge all of our students academically. We are going to continue to support them and provide intervention as necessary to ensure that all of our students are college and career ready by the time they graduate from Pacific Grove. So if we can just scroll through the next 3 slides, please. This model of Red Gold Week affords us a variety of contingencies. Some of these contingencies were already outlined by Mr. Steinbach. And one is that if we need to isolate a group, as the example given here, due to the fact that we have a Red Week of distance learning built in, I believe that we can reduce the amount of time that we have to have the school shut down physically. So this, again, creates a nimble schedule that affords us what we don't know will happen in the future, but I believe we will be ready by utilizing this schedule. Next slide, please. Now to move to community high school, again, all of this information has been shared. There is one bullet point that I would like to highlight, and that is on the next slide. And that is the last one under basic model. We outlined that we would have students on campus Monday through Thursday, with Friday being a distance day for our community students. But as you see there in parentheses, or whatever day is designated, and elementary, middle school, and the high school have all moved to Monday being a day where students are off campus. So we are ready to switch community day to that model as well. So that taking that Friday and moving it to a Monday. That concludes the information for the high schools. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Barb Martinez here, principal of Pacific Grove Adult Education. Last but not least, we're going to go over and Ralph, I think it's slide 72, if you can just go there first. Before we hit slide 73, where Eric's going to come in and talk about adult ed programs, I'm just going to give a quick update of where we are and how we got here. We opened this week. We opened our summer school program. So excited. If any of you have driven by the adult school, you will see huge signs on the front of the school, on the back of the school, on the fence lines along the entire property. And we have a brand new website, thanks to our tech, Ray DeVost and Eric Saavedra, which really is user-friendly and allows all of our students to do registration online, or if they call into the office, our office staff is back at work. And so although our campus right now is closed to visitors and to students, it's lit up with information on how you can register and access the information and the courses that are available online. Now, the good part about serving our community online is that we can double, triple, quadruple the amount of students that we serve in our community education classes, and thereby serving more of our students. And it's been very successful. So if you haven't had a chance, I encourage you to go to our website and check out our brochure and register for some classes. We are distance learning completely, and it was a strategic move to do this. Our summer session goes from runs from June 22nd to September 12th. And the good part about us really trying to completely go distance learning is to help support all district sites should we need extra space to serve our students. So that being said, our fall semester starts September 12th, ahead of the game, or in back of when regular school sites open. So it could be a backup for some childcare opportunities, for some support lending to before and after school programs. We'll be working with the city, with Kyle Susick, in future meetings this week to talk about how we can better serve all of our students so that we can get our parents back to work. So we can go ahead at this point. I can tell you all of our staff has been trained on safety issues. They're all taking their safety health checks in the morning, when they return, when they get to work, and when they leave their shift at night. This is so that we can track contacts, who they're in contact with during the day. And then our child care opened this week, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I'm just super excited. So with that being said, the next slide is all about Eric and his work that he's doing. So I'll turn it over to him.
Yes, and slide 74, please. There you go. Yeah, as Barbara mentioned, we are beginning classes next Monday. So this is the adult ed program classes and community education and parents place program. So that, again, we'll start next Monday. And as Barbara mentioned, we're doing 100% online, although we'll take a look in the fall and maybe we can bring some classes back to the site. Again, we'll have to review the situation in the fall to see if that's a possibility. Our instructors are meeting, conducting their classes using Google Meet or Zoom, and our high school diploma and ESL classes have their own online curriculum, which is very nice. So teachers could follow up on and conduct their class, account their class hours for participation using those programs. In new news, we have the HiSET and GED will now open testing. Students will be available to take tests at their house, and they'll conduct proctoring also at the house. So that's a great option. So they don't have to come in and use our site. But we might offer a paper-based testing for in the future as well, coming in the fall. Also, we're working with the state of California to set up remote testing online for the state mandated CASAS test. And again, last week we started registration and the phones have been off the hook, and we're receiving so many new online applications for the new semester. And we are so excited to be serving our community once again this summer. Thank you, Barbara.
Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. Okay, so our Pacific Grove Child Care reopened on Monday, and I'm just going to say exactly where we are with this and how we came to reopen. We've worked very hard with the county and with the state, working within the safety guidelines that they put forth, working side by side with Matt Kelly and his crew in the creation of our plan to reopen. We created and shared these safety protocols for returning to schools with our families via a Zoom meeting, and we held, we polled our families to see who would be open to returning to the campus, and then answering questions along the way. Lots of questions. We knew that they were going to come, so we reviewed the protocols. There were questions about the protocols. So we wanted to make sure that the campus was available for a tour, a virtual tour. And if parents wanted to come for a virtual tour, they could come for a virtual tour. And we gave tours to any family who had questions. And we also answered questions via email and telephone as well. We trained our staff via Zoom, and then we also held in-person meetings to walk through every step of the way what our safety protocols according to the county and state guidelines would be. We worked with the facilities director to develop a disinfecting schedule, and I'll show you some examples of this in the next slide. We worked with the director to build a sick room, and it is one of our preschool classrooms over the summer. It is the dual language the preschool classroom, and it is completely screened off where all of the furniture that's been in there for the preschool, it's all already been sanitized and cordoned off, but it is a room where we can establish a sick room should any student or staff come down with symptoms. We purchased materials for each child for physical distancing for classrooms activities. Each child has their own bin with their own art activities, their own toys that they would play with during the day. And then teachers have also bins that they would put out for children that could be disinfected easily before and after use. All of the other toys that are hard to clean are put away and not able to be used. Both of these classrooms can hold up to 12 students in each classroom. However, right now we have a capacity of, we're serving 9 families with 10 students. That means we have 1 family with 2 siblings in the pre-kindergarten side. Each side has their own classroom. The toddler side has their own classroom, complete with toys and tables and a washing station. And the pre-K side has their own playground with toys and washing station and tables for lunch as well. We have, let's see, this, so this past week, I believe it was on Tuesday. Yes, it was on Tuesday. We had a scheduled site inspection from the California Department of Social Services. His name is Joe Macias. He's been with us since the day we opened. He helped us develop all of our guidelines and our safety and our protocols, making sure that we are compliant with state regulations for a state licensed daycare facility. And he came out on Tuesday not to do our state licensing inspection, but to do a COVID safety protocol inspection. And he went over the following areas. He went over cohort separation, making sure that our teachers are not intermingling with each other's cohort. He worked on classroom design, making sure that there was enough physical distancing between each activity center. He worked with the check-in procedures, making sure that when families checked in, if there was more than 1 family waiting in line, that there were lines marked on the ground, that there were pens that were disinfected and then disinfected again after use, and making sure that temperature readings were taken of every single person that came on campus. As far as classroom design, he also wanted to make sure that parents were limited to stay outside the classroom, parents and visitors. Classroom use was for children only. If parents needed to come in, it needed to be for a very short amount of time, and then they needed to exit. He also noted and gave us recommendations as far as our emergency plan. And we do have an emergency plan for the childcare, but for the COVID part of this emergency plan, all of our school sites will now have to put a COVID emergency plan tied into their regular emergency plan in the future. And so that was very good advice on there. So next slide, please. So basically, I went around today. I wanted to show our visitors to this board meeting a little bit about what it might look like when you enter the child care facility. You'll enter through 2 different gates and get to this first slide table where you will sign in. There's hand sanitizer and disinfected pens and used pens, and which will get disinfected again. And you do a brief health check and a temperature check, and the child is taken into the classroom. You'll notice in the second slide next to that, there are all kinds of signs that tell visitors where they are allowed to be and where they are not allowed to be, and that they're really encouraged to actually drop off their children and then leave the premises. In the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see our maintenance worker. He is sanitizing our playground equipment It's sanitized several times throughout the day, not only by maintenance staff, but by our own staff. It's very simple. It is done through a pump system, like you would do Roundup, and get rid of your weeds. You simply spray this solution onto the surface and it sanitizes while it's drying. The picture to the right of that is the handiwork of our maintenance department, which our children love. They love washing their hands. You can fit up to 3 students in each one of these receptacles. There is soap, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's a soap dispenser on the wall to the left with towels to the right, and kids wash their hands with soap for 20 seconds, and they go ahead and they dry their hands, and then they can have lunch or snack. Next slide, please. And here we are. So we missed them. So here we have some, I just wanted to show you how we are physically distancing ourselves in the classroom. This is our toddler class. Wanted to take a few snapshots of our pre-K, but they're so camera shy. But we have, this is how we are having snack out. Each child has their own square on the parachute, on their playground. We have different activities where kids are playing together, but yet separate. And they are so happy. I went and I interviewed each kid and I just told them how happy we are to have them back on our campus. I asked them if they missed us and they said, yes, they missed their friends. They're so happy to be back. So there you have it. We are opening up. We are gaining more and more families each week. We did have some questions about some partitioning between the classrooms, some plastic. We do know that there were even some restaurants in town that put up shower curtains between the tables that they served their customers, and they took those down. It was recommended by Mr. Macias that we did not need to have that partition, even though it might be to some of our families an extra precaution. The reason why we are not doing that at this time is because we have a kitchen on one half of the building and a laundry room on the other half of the building, and we need to have access at either time. Our teachers are not spending excess amount of time moving from side to side. We don't want that. But if they have to perform a specific task in the kitchen, they need to be able to get there readily. Each side of that classroom building has 2 different ventilation systems, which churns the air in each side of that house. So we believe that our students are completely safe at this time without that partition, but of course, we are open for discussion. And that concludes our adult school presentation. We're excited to be back.
Madam President, I'll interject here for a moment. We have two more departments, just human resources and facilities. However, do you want to take a break for questions now regarding the sites, or would you like us to finish?
Let's go ahead. We have 2 public comments, so let's go ahead and do that. Thank you for asking.
Sure.
Okay, Thomas, you're up. Thomas,
yes. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get the camera working. I'm not very well versed in Zoom. All right. Okay. Sorry for the interruption earlier. Okay. So I'm Thomas. I'm going to be going into senior year next year, and looking at this schedule, I think that there's one really, really important thing that this schedule kind of misses out on a tiny bit, which is, in my eyes, what this schedule is going to do is it's going to just by pure arbitrary chance, be splitting friends from friends. And I'm kind of mixed about this because as Mr. Roach made such a big point to articulate, a lot of people are going to be having anxiety going back into school. And I think that the first thing, from a student's perspective, the first thing you're going to notice is the friends we are split from. And that is what this schedule, by virtue of splitting us by name, is by happenstance going to do. It is going to be splitting us from our friends. And I think that that's going to have a really negative effect on the students of the high school. Actually, as Ms. Martinez said in just last, while she was talking about her school, the first thing her kids said when they returned to school was, "Yes, I missed my friends. I'm so happy to be back." That's not coincidental. what is going to matter to the high school students themselves is the fact that after such a long time, we're seeing our friends again. And yeah, this.
Thomas,
While I understand, yes.
did you have? I'm going to go to the principals to address that question. Did you have any other specifics regarding the schedule on how to address that?
Yes, I do actually. I would recommend splitting it not by name but by class. Have the seniors and the sophomores go in one day. Have the juniors and the freshmen go in another day. Almost universally, all the students, their friends are going to be in their grade. This would almost completely mitigate that problem.
Madam President, if I may be able to address this comment.
Yes, please.
Of course, Mr.
Assistant Principal Steinbach. Hi, Thomas. Can't wait to meet you, man. Thank you for your comments. Very, very well thought out. I really do appreciate it. I think we all do. You know, a couple things I'm thinking about here. You know, we will be able to move students from A through L to M through Z cohort on occasion. Okay. You know, particularly if it's, and I think I heard that you're an 8th grader coming up to 9th.
I'm a junior going up to senior.
Oh my goodness, sorry, Thomas. Okay,
I'm Mr. Paff's son.
Oh,
sorry,
Thomas, of course, I know you, buddy. I'm sorry, but you know, we could certainly make exceptions to that rule to be sure. I think I did mention if we had a sibling at the elementary school who was in a different cohort and we had to work that out so the parents were bringing their child physically to school on the same days. You know, that will happen. You know. And I'm sure we can do that on occasion with here too. To your other point with the classes, we actually took that quite seriously, Thomas. However, there are a lot of classes that have mixed groups of whether it be freshman and sophomore and junior. We even have classes that have like sophomore senior mix, things like that. In fact, we have 6 classes that are a mixture of all 4. So we actually did take that quite seriously, and your logic is sound. In fact, I want to say that was one of the 3 types of cohorts we originally attempted to create with help from the counselors and the master schedule and the like. But we certainly did look into it, Thomas.
Okay. Thomas, thank you for your questions, and I would encourage you, if you want to give more detail to your thoughts, is to go ahead and send that email to the principals at the high school, and we will have another meeting on the 16th, but it might be helpful to do that. I'm going to move on to the next question, okay?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next is Kylene. Go ahead.
Okay, hey there, I'm Kylene Brousseau. I teach at Forest Grove. I actually had 3 questions. The first was for elementary. I just wanted clarification. Are temps being taken upon entry into the school site, or are they being taken by the teacher as the students come into the classroom? So that was my first question. My second one is, as teachers, can we have alternative work days, for example, especially with us that have children, coming in on a weekend to do prep work instead of a Monday, because what do we do with our children? And then my third one is, with everybody saying that the prep day is a Monday, has there been any discussion about purchasing or renting extra copier machines? Because it is going to be a logistical nightmare to have every single teacher trying to do prep work and copying when we only have one copier on site.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Principal Rogerman or Keller, do you have any answers to those questions, or something you want to get back to her on?
Well, to answer about the thermometers, that's going to be taken while the students come onto the site. We think it's pretty much a logistical nightmare for the teachers at this point to try to take that as the students are coming into the classroom, and we want to take that off their hands at this point. The other 2 questions are great questions. We're going to have to probably work with our administrative team to be able to address those.
Yeah.
John, a couple of thoughts that I had there was that a lot of our planning is going to have to be done with the other teachers that are in the grade level, because keep in mind what we're looking to build is a distance learning program that is going to be similar across all of the classrooms in a grade level, not just within a school, but across the entire district. So as far as an alternative workday, that might be a little bit tricky for us to maintain that ability to plan with all of our peers that are across a grade level. And then with regard to the copy machine, one of the things that we're going to try to do is limit the number of people that are using it. So one of the thoughts that we had as we're doing our planning is to designate a specific person that would do all of the copying, so that if teachers needed copies made, they would let that person know 24 hours in advance. We'd have the ability to make copies and make packets in advance of when they were needed. So if we stayed a week ahead in our planning, and Monday's planning as far as copying goes was not going to be for that Tuesday, but a Tuesday a week in advance, that would give the person plenty of time to be able to make the copies, and also it would limit the number of people that are touching the machine. It's interesting as we go through these plans, we're thinking through every scenario and how we can limit the number of people that are going to be accessing any of the equipment. Thanks.
A lot of details. Thank you, Mr. Rogerman and Mr. Keller. So we do have other public comment, but I want to come back to the presentation and respect the time of the administrators here that are ready to present. And we will be limiting the time for questions on this item because we do have other items to discuss. This is not done, as you've heard. This is the status of where we're at now. So also I would encourage any additional questions or feedback to be emailed to us as well. But for now, we'll go ahead and go back to you, Dr. Porras.
Okay, and I'll pass it over to Director Mankey, please.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and the public. I have been working on our training plans for staff as we plan on coming back to the district in the fall. The previous slide was one you have already seen, and this is just a cover page, so if you could move to the next slide. This is kind of hard to read, but just so everyone knows that all the resources that I'm using for our training are in line with the California Department of Health, the California Department of Ed, Cal OSHA, Monterey County Health Department, and in coordination with Monterey County Office of Ed. And we really believe that in training our employees, it's going to help alleviate fears and let them know that we have their safety as our utmost concern. So next slide. So with our guidance from the California Department of Public Health, we'll be working on our work site specific plans, and you heard a little bit about that. Director Kelly has done the operational work. We'll be training all of our employees. Each site will have some variances. We'll regularly evaluate our office workspaces and our school sites and make sure that that they are in compliance with what our plan is. We'll investigate any COVID-19 illnesses and do identification of close contacts of any infected employees. And just as we have with our students, we'll be isolating employees and following up with research as far as who they were in contact with. And we'll have that information because people will be signing in first thing in the mornings and going through just a series of questions for protocols. And then, so with that, second to that, we'll have topics of training for our employees. These are going to be in addition to what our annual trainings are, but what I plan to do, and I'm working with the two bargaining groups to let them know that we'll put together the time and try to reduce some of our other annual trainings so that it's not just a huge amount. We just want to make sure that everyone understands protocol and everyone is safe. So topics will be coronavirus awareness. That one's actually a Keenan Safe Schools training, self-screening at home, Coronavirus, managing stress and anxiety, that's also provided through Keenan Safe Schools. Coronavirus, preparing your household is also one provided through Keenan. Staying home when sick and or exposed to COVID-19. I know employees will be hearing that over and over again. And of course, our hand washing, physical distancing, personal protective equipment and face coverings. And as you're probably everyone's aware of as of this evening, these things are changing constantly. The face covering rules changed just as of late this afternoon. And then we'll go over our employee leave benefits with staff because there's additional leave due to COVID, reasons of COVID where people may not be able to come back to the school sites. Next slide. So this, we just gave a list of the typical symptoms as we know them today. And then to note that we do know that a runny nose is not a symptom of COVID-19. And wanted to make that, that clear because we know that our little ones and even our bigger kids are gonna have runny noses, and we don't want our staff to be concerned about that. Okay, next slide. Here's just an overview basically of what we're looking at, our trainings, our daily symptom screenings, personal protective equipment, OSHA guidelines, site procedures and protocols, physical distancing throughout all buildings. And next slide. Here are some resources and trainings if people would like to have those in advance of some of the trainings that we'll be doing. These will all be provided in the links that go out to our staff as well. And I think that's it. That's it for tonight's presentation.
Okay, and we'll go to Director Kelly now.
All right, good evening. Matt Kelly, Director of Facilities and Transportation. And I'll keep this short and kind of just highlight some of the areas that have changed in the operations guide. So the operations guide was created as like a template so that all the sites can use as a reference for when any of these situations come up during the school year. So the first part of creating that is we created a master plan, which is basically a lot of the most common things that each plan is going to have. So they're all linked together and they're all basically like a district plan, and that has been pushed out to the sites, and now the sites are working on some of their specifics, like for instance, what entrances they're going to use or what grades are going to go through what entrances, where we're going to put hand washing stations. And so some of those details are being worked out now in that operations guide. And a lot of the stuff that you've seen tonight will get inserted into their site specific guide. Since the last meeting, we've updated a lot of the procedures with if there's a positive case, what do we do as far as, everything, cleaning, setting up a site liaison, where do we put that person, how do they get picked up, and then when they can return to site or to work. And it's all based off of if you actually tested positive, or you had the symptoms, or maybe possibly someone in your household had it and you were just quarantining. So there's step-by-step instructions in there. And a lot of the other information that's in there has to do with the proper use of face shield or face masks, which is CDE and health is asking us to put together and to send out to parents. And yeah, here's a picture of the hand washing station that Principal Martinez was talking about. So we've ordered a bunch of parts, and the minimum right now we want to do is 5 of these stations per site, but like to do a lot more than that. So we're working towards a bigger number, so that the more people washing hands in these stations, the more hand stations we have, the less time they're missing education. So that's basically an overview of what we've done over the last couple weeks.
I'll just run through just briefly here. And all of this is in line with the earlier comments regarding the health department and the California Department of Health, as well as the local county. So, all right, Matt, is there anything else that you want to comment on?
You know, I think the last thing I'll say is that, you know, the last part we have to put together is really the custodial schedule based off of a lot of the information that we're presenting tonight as far as the education model goes. So that last kind of big hurdle before we start working on some of the other smaller stuff is to fit that custodial schedule with the education model, and that'll kind of tell us where we're at as far as staffing and how safe or how well we're going to be able to clean our schools during a regular school day. But you know, right now with the way schools are and the way the schedule is, I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to cover everything. Now, when sports and other activities like facilities use come back, we're going to start getting stretched a little bit thinner. So until then, we'll try to plan for that now so we can be ready for it. And that's it.
So I think, Madam President, just in regards to everything you've seen tonight, I think where we are right now, I think we've had a pretty good grasp in regards to our recommendations, as you've seen, for our schedules for our programs. Again, this has really gone through a lot of iterations of conversations with lots of people, so it's certainly not something that's just pulled out of a hat. And I think what you've seen tonight is what we're hoping that we can continue to proceed with and pass along to our county health director. And then also I think in terms of the operations guide that you saw a little bit of, and we'll be posting on web as well, there's a lot, all of the safety precautions that we are asked to consider are detailed there, and we will continue to develop with sites. Not a lot of that has a lot of flexibility. We need to report what we're going to be doing, and it looks like that's pretty well in place. I think we are well on our way to having our district prepared for this hybrid distance learning and some of the eventualities. Certainly, there are a lot of unknowns. It's like this this game show called Wipeout that was on TV a long time ago, where you run through obstacles and these big boxing gloves pop out of nowhere, knock you off your rail. And I mean, that's kind of what this is like. And every time we turn a corner, something new, and we're just not sure how to react right away.
Yeah.
But I will say that the team has been remarkable. I know that a number of districts in the county are watching Pacific Grove very carefully because we're kind of ahead of the curve. So, but our biggest interest is to try to get this as you see it, and with any direction that you can give us, to the county health director next, because we know that a couple weeks of waiting is going to be next in our future. So I'll leave it at that. Q&A as you direct, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Porras, and all administration for that presentation. Okay, so board, we have received several pieces of information prior to this meeting, as well as the presentation we just received. Are there any immediate questions that we need to know tonight? Christy?
Well, I am concerned. I know I got a email while we're talking. I'm concerned about the high school kids, or the time they're on campus a couple of times and then they're back a couple weeks later. It's not possible to have them on campus and then distance learning, to have it more frequent. That would be my question for the high school guys.
Okay.
If I may, Madam President?
Yes, please go ahead.
I think that this model is a good model of kind of maybe starting with the first couple weeks, if not the first month or two, if you will, of starting with this model. We could certainly go to a gold week if we wanted to. You know, we could take out that red week and go, you know, eight days at school, you know, every 2 weeks. We could certainly do that. We just wanted to kind of incrementally get back into things and make sure that distance learning is our backbone, particularly for the parents who may not want their children to be at school initially, which is currently at 9% for the district. But we could certainly do that and go that direction eventually.
Well, I hear you saying eventually. I am concerned about that. I would feel like there will be distance learning inherent within even that, because you're not at school all the time. You'd be at school part of the time, and then the other time you're distant learning, correct? So it's not like the gold or the red, whichever one was, you test on Monday and then the rest of the time you're not there. I have a big issue with that personally. I just feel the isolation and the interaction with the teachers and the instruction on high level, you know, I just feel at high school level with AP, with the tougher part, I mean, you're still only there, you know, a couple of days a week during the gold week. So I would have trouble with that. I think kids are probably very eager to get back. So I don't understand the concept of kind of easing into it. I mean, the truth is you can head back towards the red when and if needed. I mean, that's already has been done for 2.5 months. So I personally am much more interested in the gold. I just think kids are isolated, they're alone. Kids that are out there that at that age with no supervision, I mean, parents are not concerned with a 17-year-old the same way they're concerned with a 6-year-old. So I don't know. It's a lot of time on their own. So I would say I have a little trouble with this, to be honest with you.
If I may add one more piece to this equation, what we've been directed to attempt to do is to further the class during distance learning, meaning, you know, adding on curriculum, adding on pieces of the equation, you know, going from one subject to the next during distance learning, and not necessarily move the class forward necessarily during the time when they're physically at school, because we're attempting to provide equity to the handful of students that either get sick and can't be there, or where they have autoimmune diseases where they simply can't be at school. So that was one of the major pieces that we took into the equation when designing this.
But you still have that option in the gold week, 3 days a week. Any given kid has more days that they're distance learning than they're in the classroom already in the gold, correct? 3 out of 5.
This is true. However, from a teacher perspective, particularly for AP classes, and I would hazard to guess pretty much any class, it would be extremely difficult to move a class forward at the appropriate level that the high school certainly needs to by only doing that, which would be, if I look at this correctly, 4 days every 2 weeks.
I don't know what you just said. I'm so sorry. What did you just say?
Christy, if I could jump in real quick, Matt Bell.
Sure. Thank you.
Principal Emeritus almost.
You have minutes left, Matt.
From a teacher standpoint, in a gold week, they are working from Tuesday through Friday inside the classroom, working face-to-face with students. So they don't have the time to be able to develop the curriculum for a distance learning model. If you have straight gold weeks, one after another, they really have to use that face-to-face time to move the class forward, to use as instruction. And so if you have students that either aren't in there, or if you're doing a gold week where you're seeing kids every other day, then you really have cut your instructional time in half. And so, because you're only seeing half the kids on one day, half the kids on the next day. So if you go where the kids coming every week, 2 days a week, you just are going to lose time. Plus you're asking teachers to model a face-to-face instructional model simultaneously with a distance learning model. And that's just, I think, untenable for a teacher to have to run 2 different models. So our focus here is you're running your class from a distance learning model, so it keeps equity in the forefront. And then when the kids are coming on a gold week, those are days that you can do assessments, because we found that assessments, authentic assessments, are very difficult online. So we can do assessments. We can catch up the kids and make sure that they're following along, but not, as Shane was saying, moving the class forward. So I just want to point out that if you try and have the kids more often, you're going to start blurring what model the students or the teachers are following, either distance learning or face-to-face. And we're trying to keep it focused on the distance learning. Hopefully that clarified it.
Yeah, I still have my same concerns. And the last thing I'll say before the other board members chime in, does red have to be read the whole week? Could it be that you know, a couple of those days are, you know, red, but a couple of the other days are gold, so that a kid doesn't go a full week without any contact with students or teachers in person? I mean, I'm just wondering if that could be in there partially. I don't know why it has to be all one and then all the other. And I hear you, there's prep time, but I want to move also back towards traditional, not all the way, but this seems to me farther out. I'll let the other people talk, but I'm concerned with that, to say the least. I think kids are isolated. If they're not doing their work and you're seeing them for an hour, you're essentially seeing your kid 1 hour a week, correct?
No.
I mean, if you average it out.
Are you talking physical? You're seeing
yes, physical.
Yeah, the physical, because the red week, they're seeing their kid 5 days during the red week, but they're seeing them via video.
Gotcha.
So it's not physical, correct?
Yeah.
But they are interacting and holding their classes. Those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, those kids are in class on their computers talking with the teachers.
One thing to bear in mind as well, if I may, in our survey from families, we did have about 60% of our families say that they are ready to return to school, but there's 40% who are on the not sure they're going to or may not or will not until a vaccine is produced. We know that we're going to have a number of families who are not going to be sending their students to school, and we are bound by the governor's directive to still provide an education for them via distance learning. So we're put in a really difficult spot because we can't really commit to a full on-campus presence, because we know there will be a significant number of students who will not be coming to school. And we're going to need to, at all grade levels, need to still provide them that distance learning program. All things, the best model would be we all come back to school and things are back to normal. But right now we're not in that mode. But I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted
It's
to.
a running target. Okay, thank you, Dr. Porras and Matt Bell and Mr. Steinbeck. I'm going to move back to the board to John Paff. Any additional comments?
I do. Not as many as last time. There's a few things I just want to congratulate the principals on and admin on. One is aligning the middle school and elementaries. Thank you for getting that in place. That's really good. You know, we've thought about it. It's clear you guys have put together a system that you think will allow parents to align better with if they have multiple kids, which is a key item. Barbara, congrats on getting something started. That's nice, and I appreciate that you sent out a note and also that you had a third party come in and look at it. At this point, I have to read closer. Matt Kelly, I really appreciate the mock-ups and the photos there. The real comment that I want to make is, and Ralph just touched on it, but I was going to say it, and I'm going to say it anyway. The thing to recollect, particularly with the high school, is our mandate, and our administrators have reiterated this to me, and I think I was back and forth with Matt for probably a couple hours in the last few days, specifically on this discussion. Our mandate is to teach everyone, and there are people who cannot come back. There are some people who may choose not to come back, and then there are people who, you know, are more than willing, and that truly drives our distance learning model with some in-class time. If you take that out, then you say, well, we can do an in-class model with a little distance learning. but it really restricts us because our teachers cannot be doubled up to a point where they have to teach 15 students in a classroom and then immediately turn around and run another 12 students in some distance learning model because we haven't really concentrated on the DL. And I think we cannot underestimate how important that statement is. We are mandated, and we are frankly ethically responsible to teach everyone as best as possible. And that includes people who say, I can't send my child back for whatever reason. And that is really driving all of these. So I appreciate the efforts that admin and teachers and essentially everybody in these groups that have put this together have done to try and reach some model that works that way. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Brian?
A couple of things. First of all, just my hat off again to Buck and Sean, Barbara and Matt and Shane and Mr. Garcia too, and everybody. I've probably mentioned it way too many times, but the industry that I work in, when there's work in the industry that I work in, is the concert industry, and what is happening here tonight and the measures that have been put in place are things I think that the concert industry could actually learn a little bit from. What you're trying to do and working towards is something that a lot of people in other industries are still just standing there with like deer in the headlights. They do not know what to do. Your goals are lofty and they're commendable, and at the backbone of it, and I wrote this down, distance learning still is the backbone of what we have. You've structured something so if everything else falls apart, you still have distance learning in place. And then you have another ideal. And what is your ideal? Define your ideal. To me, the ideal is what's best for the community at large. You may have your ideal for your own family, for your own kids, but how do we get through this together? And that's what I think it ultimately boils down to. And we can't do this without looking at what is best for our village. And I think that everybody who spoke about the individual facilities that they're working on has taken that approach. Sure, there's this tweak that we could do here or there, and then we need to listen to that. We need to hear that and consider that. But in the long run, I think it's pretty good, and I hope that it works, and I know that we will hit a snag here and there as we go through it, but it's not going to meet everybody's ideals. This is a time when I see this team of people that are working so damn hard to make it work, and I think they're doing a pretty good job. So yeah, there are little things here and there, and I'm glad that people have spoken up about it, and we need to hear those things too, but it's pretty good. So that's all.
Thanks, Brian. John Malton, anything else?
I guess I'll be the dissenting vote tonight on everything.
Well, good thing we're not voting.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll be honest. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm looking more at this now tonight as a parent than a trustee. It's hard sometimes when you're a parent of two students to keep those two things apart. I'll be honest. I don't like either of the models. When I do the math, kind of back to Trustee Dawson's comments, if you have a high schooler, basically, they're at the high school maybe 4 days out of best scenario out of a month. And if you've got a middle schooler or grade schooler, they're at the site 8 days out of the month. I mean, at that point, I think it's really pointless at that point. I mean, if you're going to be on site that few of a days as a student, I think you might as well just do distance learning the whole time. I think the cost of reopening the facilities, trying to do these really complex schedules and deep cleaning and all that, just so a student can be on site for 4 days out of an entire month to take tests. Everybody keeps talking about distance learning is the core, then we might as well just stick to distance learning overall, because I don't think the complexity and headaches of having a high schooler on site for 4 days out of the month is of a large enough value for the cost and complexity. So when I heard about some of these models, you know, I heard things like 50-50 and things like that. I had assumed it would be more like a week on, a week off. And so that, you know, most of the students would ideally be at the site if they wanted to be. I get we're going to let parents for whatever reason opt out, and that's totally, you know, understandable. But, you know, for those parents that, you know, they want their kids to be on site, or they need their kids to be on site for reasons, you know, saying to a parent, okay, well, you know, we're going to let your kid come back to school, but we're only going to let them come back to school for a couple days out every month. I think you might as well just tell them, you know, don't bother, figure it out, and go more towards the distance learning altogether. I appreciate everybody's trying. It just feels like, you know, we're so far leaning towards the distance learning model because we're afraid of the rebound, and I get it, and we're afraid that there isn't a vaccine and there's not. But if the kids aren't going to come back to school and the parents are afraid to send their kids back to school, why don't we just stick with distance learning and not go through all this headache of changing all the facilities, taking temperatures, cleaning everything, putting up all these things, rearranging everything, just so a kid can be on campus for 2 or 4 days out of every month. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I want to say again, I don't want to be misconstrued on this. Number one, the amount of work that's gone into this is mind-blowing. It's outstanding. I mean, the slide shows all the work. So please don't misunderstand me. I just have worked with high school, and my background was a lot with at-risk students across. I've run independent study programs. I'm just saying, I would rather see high school kids, even if they followed more towards the middle school, where they're coming part-time to school, where you see them, you know they're okay, they're doing well, and they're connected. Even if it's a shorter period of time instead of a whole block day, I would feel much better, because I think kids float away. I think this model allows them to just, they become sort of invisible. And if they're not on their computers, which I know we're saying, oh, well, they'll all be on their computers. I mean, from everything we're reading, lots of kids aren't on their computers. There's a lot of absenteeism, a lot of disengagement. And I just think I would like it to just be looked at, that it might be tweaked, that their bodies are there and you see they're okay and they're connected. Less time, more often than 4 days a month. To me, that's crazy. That's all. But I love all the work. So thank you. And I hope hearing this doesn't sound like, they don't appreciate what we've looked at. I think it's phenomenal, but I still think the nature of the beast, you know, have those kids out, I don't like it.
I was muted, sorry. Dr. Porras, if you have any immediate responses, otherwise I'm gonna allow the 15 minutes for public comment.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add, I totally hear the comments, and the challenge that we have right now is that we have a directive from the governor to provide education for students, on campus while still providing the distance learning. Truthfully, having the students on campus and still respecting the 12-to-1 ratio, the 6-foot distancing, that alone, the mechanics of that alone is almost impossible to do in a regular schedule without doubling our staff. I think Matt and Shane pointed it out. If you have the students there too many days in a row, you're going to blow the teachers out completely, because they're going to be doubling their work effort. And the other piece that comes into play with that is we slow down the academic progress, because you're not giving a chance to proceed forward, because you're still bogged down in trying to allow for too many direct face opportunities. None of this is what we want to do, but this is, unfortunately, there's a constraint regarding to how we can do that's in our way. And we can't go to full just distance learning, because we've been directed to provide models for students to return back to the campus. but yet we're told we still need to have a distance learning plan in the event that we're closed down. So I think to that end, what we have in place right now is doable. To change it much more would require us to have more staffing and an understanding that we would lower the academic expectations of our students by half. There's a lot there as we process, but anyway, continue on. I'm sorry, Madam
Yes, thank you. No, it's okay. I'm just going to make one quick comment about basically what you were going to say, Dr. What you just said, that, I mean, we're mandated to do all these things and juggle everything at the same time. So I think you guys are doing the best job you possibly can and above that. And it's not just Pacific Grove. I mean, we know this is national, so it's not just Pacific Grove or just California. So everybody is struggling through this. So I hope it's all going to work out in the long run somehow, some way. So I am going to move to public comment, and I'm going to apologize in advance for anybody that is not able to have their public comment, but you may email us, of course, and then we will have another meeting on the 16th. And none of this is, we're not voting on this, this is just information. So the first person in line, I'm going to allow 15 minutes. The first person in line is Chris Darton. Go ahead, Chris.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam President. I am father of a child at the preschool and also a son at Robert Down. I had two short related questions followed by a comment, and I had previously emailed the board a few times. You probably got sick of the email thread earlier this week related to the daycare at the adult school reopening. My first question was going to be, what's the status and plan regarding a barrier between the two childcare rooms? This is something that Principal Martinez addressed in the meeting tonight, but still I feel like there's multiple answers, because what I heard in this meeting was, we're not going to do it, we're not mandated to do it, but we're totally open to parent feedback. So I leave the meeting with no more information, even though there was a briefing. Second question was, what's the status of an updated, clearer written plan for parents, including safety procedures? And on that point, I just want to reinforce something that Principal Rogaman mentioned earlier in this meeting, which I think was fantastic, which was, we don't think families can make an accurate decision on whether to return to school until we complete and release our guidelines. That is absolutely on point. And my sense is that the daycare went about it in the opposite order. Let's ask and reopen and then release. So my comment, just threading those two things together for the board to be aware of, for other parents to be aware of, I and some other parents are deeply concerned, not just with an issue of a barrier or some added bullet points to a PDF document, but rather that the way these issues have unfolded over the last week and a half may epitomize broader problems of leadership, decision-making, and communications that undermine parent confidence and, frankly, the safety of the PGUSD community. And I would sincerely hope that the reopening of the daycare earlier this week does not represent the policies and priorities and procedures of the district overall for how things are going to roll out at all the other sites in August. Because I would have some really fundamental concerns, and I doubt I will be the only one if that happens. I do appreciate all the labor that you all have gone to with the planning. I know this is not an easy time to be an academic administrator, but just I think let's all learn from the daycare experience. I think this is relevant for the other sites. Thank you very much for your time. I know it's a late night. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to take all of this as recorded, just so you know. And I'm not going to ask for answers right now, but we've all, got your point. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Okay, so now next is, let's see, Carrie, not quite yet for you. You're going to be next, but we've had Chapman in line and somehow got out of line. So I'm going to let Chapman speak.
Thank you. In regards to the high school schedule, I'm deeply concerned that the students will only attend school on campus 4 days each month. For students who are going to be at home alone, this is a lot of alone time by themselves in an unsupervised setting. I'm very concerned about the students' mental health. These are young adults whom social development is an important part of their overall development. The last few months have created students who are craving social contact and dealing with unprecedented amounts of anxiety. These will have long-term impacts, and we must balance them on campus, in person, instruction with balanced online learning. How is it possible that the elementary grades are looking to get all students back on campus as soon as possible, yet high school gets 4 days per month? This is not acceptable schedule for our young adults.
Thank you. I think that goes well with our previous discussion. Thank you so much. Okay, Carrie Serpa, you're up next.
Thank you. I really wanted to talk about the high school schedule as well. The middle school and elementary schools are figuring out how to get kids safely to school for 8 days a month. So 4 days a month, I just don't think is a good idea for kids' academic success or their mental health. And I really encourage the high school to go back to the drawing board on that. If it's a question of teachers and their prep and their planning, I just think you're not giving them enough credit. I have every confidence in the teachers to go back and come up with a plan of how to divide and conquer with the work, just like the middle school teachers are doing. I think you should go back and consult with your parent group, since they've only met once in May. You know, I'm on that group, and I think I could help you. I'd be happy to, and I know a lot of other parents would as well. I think you should align with that middle school on that. They have like 100 fewer kids, and they were able to figure it out. So maybe you can't get kids on school campus for 8 days, but maybe you could get a few more. I'm just really disappointed with the plan, you guys, for whatever that's worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, next is Nicole.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to touch base and see if there was going to be an update from Ms. Martinez in regards to the co-op preschool. It was not reported on last session and also not reported on again today.
It could.
Go ahead, Barbara. I just want to respect the other people that are in line, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, it'll be very quick.
Okay.
Our co-op is going to look a lot different. Of course, we can't have as many bodies in a classroom at the same time. So what we're planning at this time for our co-ops is to have a preschool without parents in the classroom, with having a parent education component online virtually at night. That's how we're planning it at this point. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nicole, I would encourage you to reach out to Principal Martinez directly, and hopefully you'll get more answers there, more detail.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is Sarah Boyle.
Yeah.
Sarah, you just need to unmute yourself.
It's okay, Nicole. I'm sorry, Nicole covered my question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. No worries. Thank you very much. Okay. Heloisa, you're next. Hope I said your name correctly. Just unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I have a child at Robert Down and a child in the middle school, and I just wanted to see what are they thinking in terms of face covering for the kids. How are they going to reinforce face covering, and what are they thinking about face covering for the kids in the lower grades, like second, first, kinder, and TK?
Okay. Dr. Porras, do you have that question? I mean, not that for you to answer, but.
Yeah, we did get the question.
You understand
Basically, we just got those directive changes today, although for schools, it's still reliant on our county. We're waiting to hear from the county director, health director, in regards to what the mandates will be for face coverings for especially the younger kids as to what grade level. So we'll have a better mandate from the health in that regards. Otherwise, we are looking at a combination of face shields and other facial coverings. obviously we understand the very young kids are going to have a really difficult time with this. The hard part right now is even with face shields, they don't satisfy the requirement of a facial covering because the bottom is open. So even with a face shield at this point, we're still required to have students with masks or other facial coverings unless something changed with the health department. So for that, we are still waiting to hear back. And I just finished a survey with the county superintendents. Hopefully we'll hear back from that relatively soon. But otherwise, we have enough masks to cover for all of our students to begin with, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is Dr. Hackquist. I think I can unmute you. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. Larry Hagquist. I'm a teacher at the high school, and I just wanted to speak about a couple things. Number one was the Red Week schedule that we've come up with. I think, in listening to everybody, one thing that I think that everybody should consider is that the Red Week does allow for opportunities there, possibly for interventions to happen on campus with the physical presence of students that are in need of those types of supports. Also, that the Red Week is not going to be the same as what we've seen in the past 3 months. Everything that I've read and learned about the schools successful in moving forward through this challenging period are the schools that do get the distance learning right. And I don't want people to underestimate how much work it's going to take on the parts of the teachers to get ready to offer a rich and robust distance learning program. I've personally attended 2 sessions already, listening to experts in the field talk about the opportunities that are available to build and develop a really strong distance learning program. Those opportunities are going to require practice. Those opportunities are going to require training. Those opportunities are going to require collaboration on the parts of the teachers and the administrators. It's going to require everybody to work together. I also wanted to speak to the thoroughness of the process. While we can continue to reach out, and I think that we will continue to listen to people. We've done, at the high school at least, I know that we've done a very thorough job. There's always room for growth, but it's just been a tireless effort on behalf of the leadership to try to include perspectives from everyone. And there were several different models that have been presented. And finally, the one that we have right now is one that was voted upon by the staff. And we all know that it's not going to be perfect because there's not going to be a model that pleases everyone. That's going to be impossible. But I do think that we need to land on something so that we can begin to plan and start working on the details that Matt Kelly talked about in looking at the schedules that we've agreed on and begin to iron out all the operational details that are going to be necessary to successfully open school. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Okay, next up is Christina.
Good evening, members of the board. I am a teacher at Robert Down, Christina Luciano. My concern is having enough time to create a robust, enriched, meaningful distance learning program as a teacher if I'm also responsible for face-to-face or blended learning. When we originally were discussing blended learning, we were looking at having 3 different types of teachers: a distance learning teacher, a teacher who was responsible for distance learning as well as blended learning, and a purely blended learning teacher. I'm wondering if this is still the direction we are looking at, or if we are only looking at having 2 different types of teachers at this time. I asked this question because when we were in the distance learning in the last trimester of last school year, it was taking me, 12 to 13 hours of time to create 1 week's worth of digital lessons. And I'm not sure that that is manageable if I am also responsible for face-to-face learning with students at that time.
Okay.
Madam President, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
I try not to interrupt too much, but one thing I wanted to note, and I think Ms. Luciano mentioned something that made me think about it, and this probably is mostly applicable to high school, but it's going to be applicable to all schools. I think it's really important to note that this past spring, we were hold harmless. So anything that happened distance learning didn't really affect the grade. Attendance wasn't monitored. Grading, their participation really was just voluntary. Going into this new year, like in the Red Week, attendance is mandatory. We still take attendance. We're still accountability. Students have to achieve on distance learning. They're not going to be hold harmless anymore. So it's not going to be that they can just simply not engage. They're going to need to engage in order to maintain their academic progress. And because of that accountability and that academic design, what Ms. Luciano said is very important. Teachers are the design and implementation of distance learning is going to be very difficult, not what it looked like in the spring. So I think we also need to wrap our heads around the fact that because they're not on campus doesn't mean that we're not expecting the attendance, the grades, homework, all of those pieces that are still there for academic progress. I just wanted to note that because I think it's a really important piece that gets forgotten in the background.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn, I'm going to come to you next, but I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Rogeman speak since it's regarding the last comment, I'm sure.
I'll be really brief. In some of the conversations that we've had with teachers, they came up with a great idea that if they were the blended learning teachers, that possibly shorten the instructional day so that they could use that last hour of the instructional day for them to check in with their blended students remotely. When we start to look at staffing, we don't know that we're going to have the staffing that we would need in order to have a distance learning only teacher, a blended face-to-face teacher, and then another teacher in support of the blended. We just, when we're looking at staffing, we just don't know if we have that capacity. However, shortening the school day might answer that question a little bit for how we could support those students that were doing the distance learning as part of the blended program when it was not their day to attend.
Thank you, Mr. Rogeman.
Okay, Carolyn, you're up next. This is the last question, by the way.
Good evening, everyone. So I love public schools and I desperately want public schools to survive. The only way we can do that is by meeting the needs of our families. And I wanted to talk a little bit about distance learning tonight. I have a child at the elementary school, so my comment is based mostly for that. And I really just want to say, if we can stop trying to recreate the entire school day at home with distance learning, I am so hopeful and excited for the teachers to go through training this summer to make distance learning more doable. We're not teachers, we're parents. We don't have that specialized skill. And we would, as parents, we would love for the teachers to curate the curriculum in a succinct way, so it's not just giving us so many options and saying, oh, just do what you can or pick what you can. We would love for the teachers to be like a curator in a museum and making these very simple, direct distance learning curriculums so that we feel accomplished, so that kids feel accomplished, we feel motivated, almost like a homeschool model. If we all think about homeschooling, which is kind of what distance learning is, we can't recreate these 4 to 6 hour days at home. It needs to be a lot shorter. I don't know if the district has looked into contracting out with a distance learning company to free up some teachers who could use that time to spend it more developing the in-person curriculum or just aiding the distance learning curriculum. But I don't think we have to do this all on our own and retrain teachers to do skills that other people already have in the distance learning world. And lastly, I feel like the schools I feel like the sites, I feel like you all are trying so hard to kind of create these part-time solutions for really a full-time working world. And so the quicker we can get to helping families who need full-time school, the better. And in the meantime, I love that you guys are taking your time and making all the safety precautions in place so that we can hopefully work towards that or work towards full distance learning, whatever ends up working out. And I'm sure we would all love to know what's going to happen. So thank you for all your work on that. But those are my comments so far in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna come back and I'm gonna, this is information, like I said before, and we could probably talk about this for 2 more hours, but we're not gonna do that tonight. We have the 16th scheduled for that. I'm gonna move on board to the next item, which is information discussion B, solicitation of funds report 2019-20.
Madam President?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I know you're on a roll, and I realize that, and I will say that if we need to move some of these two reports to another meeting, we can. I think I realize that we have another meeting for the 16th, but
Need direction.
we're going to need a little bit of direction because
I'm sorry. Okay.
The piece that's missing here is that we really need to try to get something started to present to the county health department so that we can at least get a general idea of even what we have is going to be acceptable for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm hearing all the input, and so I guess what if I could get from the board just a general direction, what you see is do you want us to present what we have so far? Do you want us to go back to the drawing board on everything? You could break it down elementary, middle, high, but I need to get a little bit of a direction in regards to the next step, because for us, the next step is to really try to vet some of this with county health so we even know that what we're doing is even remotely going to happen. I think that's the first step. I realize that you need to see all the documents, and we'll get that online, but I tried to front load those a little bit with the board so you had a sense of what was going on.
Okay.
Direction would be helpful for us.
I really apologize for that. Yes, I am trying to be on a roll, but you're absolutely right. So I'm gonna go in order and to give our somewhat last minute direction, opinions. I am not an educator. I'm just a volunteer on the board, and I of course have opinions, but I am going to trust our administrators, who I think have done a fabulous job. The only comment I'll make is the high school, there was a lot of feedback on that. Again, teachers approved that, or they came up with that. So I'm gonna have to trust that they know, and that's what I would say is go with what you have, with maybe some slight changes based on some comments tonight. Christy?
I know the last thing you had said, Dr. Porras, was I'm in agreement with what you're saying. I'm not saying change the overall hours. Because obviously if it's gold all the time, full days, then there isn't time for distance learning. I think it can be looked at so that kids are more connected to the school, more connected to each other, and they can still have similar hours, but just broken up differently. Instead of having a block day that all day you teach, and then the next week you're not seeing kids the whole week. I'd like it to be looked at and move more towards what's going on in the elementary and the middle schools, where kids are coming in more frequently, and it can just be broken up in a different manner, and it can still do the same thing, allowing teachers plenty of time for prepping. Well, plenty of time. It's still going to be hard, but there's more time for prepping. I just don't want those kids floating. That's all. So I think it can be done.
So you're good with the rest of the plan, but you would like the high school plan to be reconfigured somehow.
Absolutely. And I understand that staff would like that. I wish we could poll kids and say, do you want to just come in 2 days every 2 weeks? I would imagine they don't. And I know we're making big changes here. The goal is that before real long, we're back to a normal thing. So I know we need to do a good job with distant learning, but it's not something that this is what we're doing because we're going to be doing it for the next decade. It's for a absolute period of time that's unknown right now. But I still think emotionally, psychologically, kids need to have the boots on the ground at the high school more frequently. Less time, perhaps, on given days for sure, but more often.
Okay, thanks. Got it. John Path.
You know, I've been around and around on this, looking at it, trying to say, okay, what do I have that might be? There's nothing better. Within the mandates of what we have had people present and say, this will work. We'll be able to teach, and we think we can get through, if not all, a high percentage of our curriculum. Yes, students are going to be gone for a week and then come back. And at the high school, and because of the block scheduling and the way that we've looked at it, I believe this is as good as we're going to get. Also, the fact is, this is where I wanted to be about today. We actually have to commit. We need to give and say, move forward on this. If in fact we come back and you say, well, we can go 2 days, Thursday, Friday only every week, and everybody feels better about that, fine. But right now we're in a position where, we're 7 or 8 weeks away. It's got to be set. And I think that you guys have done an excellent job of trying to present and gone through, probably 15 iterations to get here. Move forward, take it and run, and good luck. We know how to undo it. As far as how long this is going to go, it's going to go a year. We're not having football this year, guys. We're pretty sure of that. There's things that are just not going to happen. But if we're not at least planning till December, we're being, it's going to be there, and it's almost certainly for this unfortunate senior class.
Thanks, John.
I have one other quick item, Debbie.
Okay.
And I really want to address it to Ralph. The thing that we haven't heard from you is, do you need more funds? Do you need more professional development money? Do you need 3 additional substitutes on staff at every school to do this? And I think I'd like to see that come back. And if we have to figure out, I know we have some money that's kind of flowing in a little bit higher because we didn't spend it in the spring. But I think by July, we absolutely need to have a good understanding of that and be able to say, look, this is why we have a reserve, or no, you can't do that, and be able to push that forward as well.
I hear that. We definitely already have those plans in the works, and budget has already been a key component of that, so we can report more on that later.
Thank you.
Okay. Brian,
Thank you,
you're welcome, John. Thank you. Brian?
I want to address what John Paff had just said about if there's extra support that's needed, by all means. But I know you will. You'll let us know. As far as the rest of it, yeah, it's time to move forward. Like I said before, this is not going to be everybody's ideal. It never will. But I think that, I know the people that have put this plan together, and it has not been done haphazardly. The amount of effort, the hours that have spent, the amount of angst and hand-wringing and trying to figure out a different way to peel a potato, all of that, however you want to put it, it's all gone into that, and it's time to move it forward. And I think that what has been presented right now is, I have to trust that it is the best for all. Yeah, you could tweak it here, you could tweak it there, and maybe it, but I'm not about to go down that avenue. I'm ready to move forward with what has been presented and trust the professionals that they know what they're doing.
Okay, Brian, so you're good with the way it is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, John Walton?
Well, I think I've already said it. I'm disappointed that the younger the kids are, the more time they have on site in facilities. The older they are, it seems like the less time they're there at the school sites, where I think, it should be more equal. I have, a lot of questions about, I had written down because, most of my questions were about the safety of the kids when they came back to the sites. But given the fact that it looks like we're going towards a plan that they're going to be on site very little, I guess I'll just put those on hold till some future date. If we're doing 90% distance learning is what this looks like to me when I start doing instructional hours for students, then I hope on the 16th we hear a lot more details and see a lot more examples about what our distance learning program looks like at all the grade levels.
Okay. John, I'm going to come back to you in a second, but I'm going to interrupt this conversation and say we need to discuss and vote on extending this meeting since it is 10 o'clock. So I am going to make a motion to extend the meeting to 10:30, but I'm also going to include in that motion to table the next two items for the next meeting.
Second it.
Okay, so motion by, I forgot my name, Debbie Crandall, seconded by Christy Dawson, and a roll call vote to extend the meeting, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye, and at least you didn't call yourself Debbie Swanson. That's all I'm saying.
Trustee Swanson?
Yes, please.
Trustee Walton?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to talk about future agenda, but let's finish this conversation. So John Walton, back to you. So are you saying that your direction would be then to relook at the high school, but the rest is okay for now, the way it is?
I've given my comments. I have no direction to give.
Okay, well, I think that's what, and I'm not going to ask you to force you to do it. I just want to make sure that Dr. Porras has enough information from us, collaborative, right? Because I'm hearing 3 that are okay with the way it is, and there's a couple that think we should look at the high school, and I don't want to discredit that. So, Dr. Porras, do you have feelings based on that discussion and the 5 of us? Or would you like us to come to more of a clear direction for you?
Thank you, Madam President. I think just as I would just request if there's something that's left unsaid, but it's important for us to hear it now so we can address it and to hear it. I definitely hear the direction in regards to revisiting the high school plan a bit. I think because this was designed by the teachers, I think there was a comment earlier about that it could be designed better and rely on the teachers, and I agree. This was a teacher design plan. We'll go back with them and see if there's something we can tweak and work with that. I would love to have our students more on campus. I just the parameters are there making this really tricky, and to keep the academic progress. That's the catch. So if we want to do less academics and more social emotional, which I understand, we just need to understand that the students will receive less of an academic year, and we'll just have to live with that. And that's, I want to try to avoid that because our charge is not that. However, I think I got enough for now. Our administrative team has all been online listening as well. I think the next step is for the high school to just take a look and see if there's some possibilities of arranging for that more. And the distance learning plans, we have lots of professional development happening in mid-July. I don't know that we'll be able to have specific plans for you on the 16th because a lot of the training is happening into the second half of July on the training, but we can provide what we can on the 16th.
Okay. I just want to say that it's really sad that we're having to do this. So, I mean, I agree with the emotional part of it, but I mean, I don't know how much more we're going to be able to do. So, I don't know what else to say except you guys have done a fabulous job and you're doing the best you possibly can. So, I guess then we know the direction is going to be we're really good with probably about 85% of what's presented tonight. And we'll look forward to hearing more as it evolves.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Now we, just for the record, we are skipping action or information discussion item B and C. We will be putting that on the next agenda. The next item and last item is the future agenda items. I'm not sure that I heard anything new for tonight.
We did, Debbie. Ms. Swanson talked about the possibility in the future, SRO coming and talking about jobs and just more communication with the community as far as just what's going on. It'd be kind of nice to have a conversation about that.
Okay.
Again,
I just want
far out there, Debbie. Far out there.
I just want to add to that. I mean, I agree, and we'll put that down. He does do presentations, safety nights at each site. He's come talk to us about DARE, but we can put it on there that we'd like him to come. Well, we'll see how the year goes, right? But
Sure.
we'll have it on the list. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll talk with him too. Make sure that he hears it. And he will.
Okay.
That's not a problem at all.
Yeah. We'll see how the first couple months go and then worry about that later.
Months and months from now.
But we'll put it on there to be determined.
Sure.
John Paff, any future agenda items that you heard or want?
No, but at the end of your meeting, I have one 30-second comment. Less than that even, but thanks.
Okay. Okay. Brian, future agenda?
No, but thank you for asking.
Okay. John Walton?
No.
Okay. I will open up for public comment on future agenda items. You just raise your hand for us, please. Okay. Seeing none, I will come back to the board and we'll just ask for that last item, the SRO, however you want to word it, Dr. Porras, presentation, update, to be determined.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's that. And John Paff, you had something you want to say?
I truly wanted to congratulate Matt. So, I mean, it's not enough to give you a virtual round of applause, but you know, I'll tell you what, you're going out on a different note than every one of your predecessors.
That's right.
And congratulations. And you know, gonna miss you up there.
What's going to happen with the bow ties? That's the question. I won't be able to sleep. Where will they go? What will happen to them?
Well, I don't know. I saw one tonight on Mr. Keller, so we'll see. Maybe that tradition will carry on.
Yeah.
So thanks, John, for saying that, because if you guys recall, last time I adjourned the meeting in honor of Matt Bell, I really thought that was his last meeting. And so I don't know what I was thinking. So with that said, again, go ahead, Brian.
Jonathan, can you let us play out at the end of this meeting for Matt? Let it play out.
What's a play out mean?
What does that mean?
Let the song run to the end.
What song?
Just let it run. When we're done,
sure,
you can log out.
Oh, okay.
I won't end the meeting right away.
Okay, I'm confused, but as long as Jonathan knows what he's talking about.
Well, and Jonathan's rocking the bow tie too, so that's, you know.
There you go.
I have been, but not tonight.
Normally.
Thank you
Okay. Well, really, Matt Bell, where are you? I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry this time like a baby. I got it all out of my system. Really, I congratulate you as well. And I know you're gonna find stuff to keep you busy, right?
Lots of gas in the tank, you betcha.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe some grandkids down the road, probably.
Ooh.
Yay! Down the road.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Matt, for all your years of service and being who you are. See, now I'm getting emotional again. But anyway, so don't go anywhere, Matt. So I do want to adjourn the meeting. I just want everybody to stay healthy. I say this every time, but I mean it. Just be patient with us. Administration is doing the best job they can with what we have and what we know. We're all feeling this personally, in our work, personally, at the school. And we've heard it several times and out there and all kinds of social media. We're all in this together. We really are. So please stay healthy and talk to you soon. And I'm going to adjourn the meeting in honor of you, Matt Bell.
Ah,
For
thank you.
real this time.
Love you.
Love you too. Yay. Okay, cue music.
Nice.
Oh,
All right. The roadies. I like it.
Just a little longer. Motor don't mind, and the union don't mind. If you take
Mr. Swanson. Woo!
you stay just a little longer. Please, please, say you will. Say you
How long is this song?
Okay.
David Lindley. Off comes the bow tie.
Goodbye, Matt.
Oh, it's official.
What a way to end.
All right.
Matt.
Official.
Woo! Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night, all.
Bye.
Good going.